Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Around the Indoor Football World, where, as always, we talk about all the major indoor football news from leagues like the IFL, the NAL, the AF1, the TAL, and the AAL. And we've got a lot to talk about today. There's big news in multiple different leagues, from coaching changes to expansion teams hiring their first coach to a championship to review, as well as much, much more to discuss. But before we get into all that, as always, I'll start you off with a little bit of metal in the morning. Now, of course, before we get into the content, I want to ask you guys, Krish, how are you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to this big weekend. We got a big one against Quad City, and so excited for that. Against Cody and them. So, I would love to be Quad City, definitely.
Fair point. Fair point. Cody, how's your weekend going so far, man?
I can't complain. It's the first weekend in the last 2 to 3 weeks where I haven't had to travel west of Wichita, so it's nice to be back in my own little space and not have to drive or do anything like that. As for Quad City, they've been on the back burner with their bye week and everything, so time to pick that back up.
There you go. There you go. Should be a great game. I actually think this is probably going to be a little bit closer game than Krish might admit right now. Oh, he's nodding his head. Never mind. So I guess I stand corrected. But before we get into the IFL, we typically like to save that for last because it's one of the larger leagues. Lots to talk about. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and jump into the TAL first today. There's a couple things that I want to discuss specifically, but we're going to go ahead and get into the big news this week. And there were kind of dueling comments, and maybe you guys got a chance to look at this. Maybe you did not. But I'm going to go ahead and pull these up real quick. And basically, Coach James Shiver had a lot to say about this past game against Memphis. He basically made multiple accusations that there were some rule violations and that ultimately he did not like a lot of the stuff that went down there in Memphis because it was, in his mind, not legal. And I'll read the quotes or the message here so you guys can kind of see exactly what he said. But it basically kind of pointed the finger at Memphis for quite literally ducking the rules at multiple times. So sadly, Friday night we lost in Memphis. I learned a lot about the Arena League, though. Number one, don't let the rules define the game. I write that because in the Arena League, you can dress 16 players a game, and it makes your backups real Iron Man players, except in Memphis, where you can dress 21. Crazy how we lost 4 players to injury in the first quarter, but in Memphis, it wouldn't matter. Number 2, instant replay. The touchdown was caught 4 feet out of the most unsafe end zone in the world, and it was ruled a touchdown. When I asked to challenge the catch, I was told that it was already reviewed, which was amazing because they told me there was a 7-second delay on the film before the game started. Number 3, quality of officials. The big tight end catches a first down, and the official on the home wall throws a flag. The white hat tells me it's pass interference on the corner on that side. I asked if he was sure because that should be called defensive holding, but he assured me his years in high school trumped my knowledge. Their entire team rushes the field and starts fighting one of our players. Offsetting penalties were called. Nobody from their bench was kicked out. Integrity in a league is everything, and if nothing happens, then we will know what this league is really about. That, however, did not stop there, as there were comments made from, it looks like, and I don't want to misspeak here, but it looks like this gentleman who made the comments back is a sponsor of the team and or somebody involved with the Memphis Hound Dogs. So let's scoot right over here. Here are the comments from Bill Alexander. I've been involved in football for most of my life. I've coached, organized sports groups, and helped build one of the best fan organizations in football, the Memphis Mafia. Because of those experiences, I don't make statements like this lightly. Unfortunately, Friday night was one of the most unprofessional displays I've ever witnessed from an opposing coaching staff. Throughout the evening, there was constant complaining, excuses, and finger pointing instead of simply competing. Even after the game, one coach continued those complaints on social media, something I've never seen from a coach. In my opinion, it reflected poorly on the individual, the league, and distracted from what should have been about the players and the game. Friday night should have been a celebration of football. The Memphis Hound Dogs played an outstanding game. Our fans created an incredible atmosphere, and everyone worked hard to make it a first-class experience. We welcomed Monroe with respect and hospitality. Our fan club even provided a world championship barbecue meal for both teams before the game. That's why it was so disappointing to hear a Monroe coach publicly claim they were never fed. That statement was simply false. There's even a photo of that coach enjoying the meal that was provided. As a team sponsor, I also had several friends and potential sponsors attending the game with me. We had a suite reserved, but members of the Monroe coaching staff took it over, insisted it belonged to them, and told us there was nothing we could do about it. It was embarrassing in front of my guests and reflected poorly on what should have been a positive experience. Several Monroe players were openly trash-talking Memphis fans and even the local high school players who attended as part of the high school night. Young athletes deserve to see respect and sportsmanship from the people they're watching on the field. What concerned me most was a member of the Monroe coaching staff publicly accusing the game officials of cheating. Whether you agree with calls or not, publicly making accusations against officials without evidence undermines the integrity of the game and sets a poor example. If league policies address that type of conduct, I trust the league will review it appropriately. I've always respected Coach Terry Bowden and the standards his name represents. That's one of the reasons this experience was so disappointing. The Memphis Mafia, our volunteers, our sponsors, and the Memphis Hound Dogs organization represented Memphis with class. We welcomed our guests, fed both teams, supported the officials, and created an outstanding game day environment. I believe our fans, volunteers, sponsors, and organization deserve an apology for the false statements and the disrespect shown throughout the evening. At the end of the day, football is about more than winning and losing. It's about character, accountability, and sportsmanship. That's the standard our organization will continue to uphold. So lots to unpack there on both sides. Obviously, lots to kind of feel out. I'm not exactly a fan of publicly commenting on a game such as Shiver did, but I wanted to get your guys' experiences and thoughts on what he had to say and overall kind of your feelings from those comments. So, Krish, let's go to you first real quick.
Yeah, I think it's a little embarrassing, to be honest. I mean, you lost by 45 points. I mean, if it was maybe a touchdown or 10 points, I can understand. But, 45 points, come on, man. Like we can't be complaining. There's things. I mean, I watched that whole game, man. Monroe had multiple, mistakes in the secondary. Their defense has been horrible all year, and they have the talent to be good. Monroe on both sides of the football should be way better than Memphis. If you compare the two rosters, man, like it's crazy. Monroe pays a wide receiver, Fabian Guerrera, over $1,000 a game and flies him into every game. So that's a fact, right? And so we're still losing by 45, even with that. I agree with you. Memphis, their setup is kind of, unprofessional. With the they play the gym and everything, and I understand that, but still, and look. It's a lot of finger pointing, and the leadership of the TAL need to step up. And they've kind of been missing this here all year long. I haven't heard from Jeff Holmes. I haven't heard from Tommy. I haven't heard from anybody, when stuff like this has happened, when in the past they would speak up. And so I don't know if leadership had become tired of running the league or what's going on. Stats are not updated. Websites not updated. Everything. And, respectfully, like, they started the new thing, what it's called, Baller VIP or something. Their subscription service. No one is paying $150 for a custom Aaron Dilworth video. No one is. So I don't know what we're trying to sell on that. So stop trying to make your own version of OnlyFans for the TAL, man. Like focus on YouTube. That's my little thing. So
you're not the only one that has made that specific comment to me. It seems to be a reoccurring theme that a lot of people think that's very OnlyFans themed. I'm quite the opposite, obvious on that, but that's personally me. Cody, what are your thoughts on this situation unfolding between Memphis and Monroe?
Yeah, it's some excuse me. It's some really, really heavy accusations. And for both sides, like I said, a lot of finger pointing, but it's going to boil down to what action, if any, is going to get taken. Like Krish mentioned, where is the leadership within the front office of the league to sit there and say, hey, we either need to go check this out. To the credit of the Facebook comments and stuff like that, I think there was a line in there where it's like, we've never seen coaches, complain or something like that. I'm like, you see coaches complain all the time on Facebook, or players and everything like that. Like you always see complaining. I mean, they do it in the game and everything like that. So to that, no. So what we have here is, I wouldn't say a bunch of he said, she said, but at the same time, it's kind of along those lines. If that is the case and Memphis was able to use more players than not, that is an accusation that you have to take within the league, and then you have to investigate and figure out what's going on here. On the other end of the spectrum, yeah, it just sounds like a lot of like sour grapes because a team lost. So there's no side to pick. I mean, if you're a fan of either team, you're probably going to pick your team's side, but for the most part, you're looking at these allegations going like, what action, if any, is going to get taken? And it might be behind the scenes, we won't know, but you've got to look at this and say, hey, this can't continue regardless of what it is.
Completely agree. And okay, a couple things. So yes, 100% those end zones were unsafe. That definitely needs to be corrected. I don't think there's really any excuse for that. Obviously the TAL is they're one of the most budget friendly leagues, so they're definitely doing everything as cheaply as possible in certain scenarios. But that's one thing that they've avoided in previous spots so far, was the lack of proper equipment and safety apparatuses around the field. So I personally am not real thrilled with that setup in Memphis either. Do I care that it's in a gym? Not really. If you have the proper padding, you have the proper walls, you have the proper seating, and you're making sure that fans and or the players are properly protected, I don't really care if you play games in a gym. That's me personally. That's kind of how the TAL operates. They want to find very budget friendly venues, so I get that part of it, but I don't really have any real excuse for why they don't have complete end zone padding and stuff like that, which I think is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Brian says he counted 21 dressed players pregame, so that is definitely an issue. My question would be, were some of those players just wearing, just their jerseys? They didn't have padding on. Did they have helmets? Because if they're fully dressed, that's illegal. That needs to be addressed. If they were, there in their jersey, just watching the game, obviously a totally different story. That happens in every game, especially when players are hurt. So lot of different factors on that, but it will be interesting to see how the team and the league addresses it. Now, I will say the same thing that I said to Brian privately. Did we see Memphis's list of complaints? Because in every game, in every league, probably every week, to be quite honest, there are complaints to be had on both sides. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you went to go to the Memphis coaching staff, they're going to have a list of complaints towards Monroe or towards the officials. That happens in every game. So I think that some of this is probably, frustrated coach that feels like he got slighted. And that's nothing against Coach Shiver. I think he has the right to be able to voice his opinions on certain things like this. But was it maybe handled the right way? I personally don't think it was. So a lot of respect for Coach Shiver. Will remain a fan of his, but I definitely think there are better ways to handle.
And my problem is, so, what Brian is saying about the front office decision, they played tonight against Ozarks. So we still don't have a decision about something that happened a week ago. That should have been resolved by midweek at the latest. That's my issue. So
yes, 100%. 100%. There's no excuse for that. You have a situation like this pop up, you need to address it quickly. And I think that's part of the league ownership. And look, I'm not going to sit here and call out the league ownership, but I have noticed some of the same things that Krish has noticed. It does kind of seem like there's a little bit of a lack of vocal leadership this season versus seasons past. And that doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. Maybe they're just operating a little bit differently this year, but you do kind of wonder when something like this happens and you don't hear the league speak on it. That seems a little concerning to me. Cody, are you surprised that there hasn't been a statement from the team or anything about it yet, or the league? I'm sorry.
Oh, when you barely get statements from the Indoor Football League or anything like that regarding stuff, it doesn't shock me. I'll be honest with you. I mean, we're at this point in time where, again, and I'm not pointing fingers, but like you barely hear anything out of the NFL or any other pro league because they want to try and either sweep it under the rug or try and do something along the lines of where they're like, hey, let's try and handle this stuff in house and have it not get out to the public because we don't want to deal with insiders or whatever trying to get their scoops, whatever. So I think they're all trying to handle it in house. If it gets handled, great. If it doesn't, I don't know. Like I said, we won't be there. It's not like we're going to knock on the door and be like, hey, what's the punishment? So we're just kind of left in the dark when it comes to that. And we'll see who plays, who doesn't play, if there's any reprimanding or anything like that.
It's definitely going to be an interesting thing to kind of unpack and see over the next couple of weeks if anything happens. But believe it or not, this is not the only news. There was, in fact, some football games played last week. So let me go ahead and pull up those games. I will be completely honest. I did not catch most of the games. I did watch a brief chunk of the game with the Goats and the Siege, which was pretty good. But I honestly was traveling back and forth from the NAL championship game, so I didn't get a lot of time to watch most of the games this weekend. And I wouldn't lie to you guys, so there we go. So this past weekend, we had Monroe at Memphis, which we've already discussed, Ozarks at Arkansas, Nebraska at St. Joe, and Iowa at Eau Claire. Krish, I didn't catch, obviously, the Ozarks and Arkansas game or Iowa and Eau Claire. Do you know who won those two games?
Yeah, so Arkansas won by about, I believe, 20 points. Ozark is what Ozark is. I've been hard on them, all off season. I think that program is the most overrated program in all of the league. What they claim that they built nothing. It's just a disappointment. And then I would say, let's see, Iowa won by 38-32. It was 32-12, and then Eau Claire came back and tied the game, and then won 38-32. So, Eau Claire drops to 0-4. And I know TJ and them said does a show every Monday night with the head coach, right? That I respect the coach. He seems like a nice guy. He's just not ready for the professional game. And it's just pretty clear to me when he's saying that I love all my players, I love this, I love that. You're not supposed to love your players when you're 0-4. You're supposed to hate everyone around you. So that's what it is.
That started off a very professional statement and then ended a little bit less than that, but that's okay.
Winning is the only thing that matters. I mean, no, okay. Let me back that up a little bit. Winning matters. If everything else matters, then winning will matter to you. You know what I mean? Winning should be in the forefront. And 2 players.
Everything was discussed on a league call.
Why there's no statement? I mean, there's no statement on the website, but you can't put it on the website because you don't have an active website. So, put it on Instagram or something. I don't know. It's annoying.
That look. What Krish is trying to say is we need a little bit of transparency as fans. I mean, if there's going to be, discretion or indiscretions like these during the games and stuff like that, that the league needs to be transparent with the fans in terms of what the punishment is, because we all see these comments. It's not like they're hidden. They're public on Facebook. Everybody saw them. So we know what happened in the game. We know that there are complaints. So, I mean, I feel like at that point, given that the situation is already very public, you need to address it as such. If it was a private situation that had been handled privately, sure, keep it quiet. That makes sense. You don't want every negative situation around your league public. But again, this is already in the public, so you might as well handle it that way, in my personal opinion. Like I said, transparency, I think, is a big deal, especially to fans that are investing their time, money, and energy in your league. So I think that needs to be at the back of everybody's mind in the league, if they're going to move forward. So a couple people checking in. We got Scott Levin checking in. Scott, good morning. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate that as always. C-Dog the Goat checking in. Thank you for checking in. Appreciate that, C-Dog. Of course, Brian's here. Really appreciate you being here every time, Brian. That Alexander dude spams the TAL Facebook group with AI posts. Okay, it's fair enough. 1060 Designs checking in, laughing, says claiming you didn't eat, but there being a photo of you grubbing is wild. That's I would agree on that. Lame duck league ownership. I'll be honest, I've heard some rumblings that may be the case, that they are trying to possibly move on, but we'll see how things go. What was the score? What does Memphis say the final score was? That should tell you a lot of the Memphis team. We could tell. Brian's just a little bit salty. It's okay, Brian. It's gonna be okay, buddy. We will comfort you and help you mourn in your loss this week. So, any other thoughts on the TAL this week before we move on? Fair enough. I felt like that was probably the big
Robert McCoy signs with St. Joe.
Oh yeah, well actually, sorry, there's quite a few transactions that we need to cover on that front. Robert McCoy to the Goats. Vincent Espinoza and Daquan Dudley have signed with the Nebraska Siege. And then I feel like there was a couple other ones we talked about this week, but they may have been AF1 moves. I think those are the main three currently, and I'm sure there's going to be more to come, but it seems to be like there's a little bit of a bridge there between the Omaha Beef and the Nebraska Siege, and obviously we've talked about this privately, but I wanted to ask you guys on camera. I mean, do you think that there's some strategic advantages by allowing, in the Beef's case, your quarterback and possibly your best receiver, going to a team together where they can continue to build on their chemistry with that they had started with the Beef, in advance of potentially returning for 2027. So, I mean, Krish, what are your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Nebraska runs a very basic offense. I was watching their tape, the other day, and I'm like, man, it seems like they run the same 4 plays over and over again. They just throw a bunch of swing routes, but it works for them, man. They win every game. They play aggressive defense. And they have a lot of players that, exactly, Coach Martino, what he's doing down there. They have a lot of players that are better than the players the Beef have this past season. And what I mean by that is like Ken Davis, right? Getting a running back of that caliber to Omaha would be hard, for them. D1 players like that don't really pop up in Omaha like that, but Ken Davis, him playing with Siege, he might be more open to playing for the Beef. It also gives, Ricky and them a good opportunity to evaluate coaches. If he's obviously, I heard they're looking to hire a new head coach in Omaha, so maybe Dominic Bramante is someone he's looking at. Who knows, right? Like it opens up a lot of good possibilities. Daquan Dudley, going there, he's going to dominate that league. He's a great player, obviously. And then the only person that I think this hurts is Caleb Lowe. If I'm Caleb Lowe, I'm feeling some type of way. Because I've done my job. I've gone 1-0 every week, and now they're bringing a quarterback that beat me out at a previous stop in Tulsa. So, of course, I would feel some type of way.
That's a good point. I honestly forgot about the fact that they had overlapped in Tulsa as well. So, definitely an interesting situation from there, and then a good point. I mean, obviously, if you're Caleb Lowe, you have to be looking across the depth chart and being like, wait a minute, like we're undefeated. Why are we bringing in other quarterbacks and stuff like that, especially ones that are, we're just on an NAL playoff team. But man, Caleb, if you see this, I apologize ahead of time because I mean no disrespect in this, but I actually have to side with the fact that I think Vincent Espinoza is probably a better fit for the TAL play than Caleb Lowe. Caleb's done a remarkable job, and he's played really well a lot of several of his previous stops. So I'm not trying to say that he doesn't deserve the opportunity he's getting right now, but with the wide open kind of backyard type style with the TAL gameplay, I think Espinosa's athletic ability kind of lends itself to their rule set. So, I mean, whether or not he ends up starting, we'll see. But definitely kind of interesting to see that there seems to be a little bit of a bridge there between the Nebraska Siege and the Omaha Beef. And I do think, Chris, you're right that there's probably going to be some sort of, crossover. Some players that potentially played with the Siege this season that might go back to the Beef in 27. But Cody, any thoughts on that factor there for the Beef and the Siege?
Yeah, like to everyone's credit, it's one of those things where you're just like, all right, they play two different styles of indoor football. One's 7-on-7, the other's 8v8. But it's going to sound kind of I don't want to say mean, but like players go for the money. I don't think that this is one of those issues. But with the NAL season being over, and what do you do if you're an NAL player and you're going to wait for the next offseason and you're going to go find another opportunity if you want to keep playing? So, like I said, that might come off as, rude or harsh or something, but people want to keep playing. People are in game shape. People want to keep going for it. So I don't blame them for wanting to go and test their talents in a different league or a different rule set or anything along those lines. We know players that are in the TAL that were in the IFL last year, the NAL last year, AF1, and we have this entire talent pool of indoor and arena guys that pretty much go from league to league to league wherever their talents are needed. I feel like this is no different on the aspect of Nebraska and Omaha. Like I said, it's two different styles, two different leagues, but if they can lean on each other and kind of build a partnership, quote unquote, it could be something where, again, the seasons overlap, but one season starts way earlier, one season ends way later. So it's something where, again, there is that little bit of an overlap, but if you are able to kind of go, hey, we've got this guy and our season ended, you want him? Okay, here. Or it's, hey, we have this guy in training camp, but he's doing really well. Can we send him over to Omaha? Kind of like, I don't want to say call him up to the big leagues because that sounds mean too. But at the same time, it's like you can have that give and take of like, hey, there's not much travel between Grand Island and Omaha. So we'll see.
No, I actually think that I think it's a really, really good idea on both parties. And to your credit, there's been a lot of players that have jumped from the IFL or the NAL over to the TAL and vice versa. In fact, we talked about Aaron Dilworth was on the Pueblo Punishers earlier this season, and then ended up leaving for the TAL, kind of mid-year, despite, we're not going to get into that situation again, but obviously we discussed that previously this season. So there has been a lot of that already, and it seems to only be growing as the season goes. But another caveat there is the IFL's rule to where they have locked out the NAL players at this point, or locked them out, because it seems like there's kind of some hit or miss enforcement on that. With that in place, I think we might see a lot more of this, a lot more of NAL players going over to the TAL, and maybe even AF1 at the tail end of their season. I don't really know exactly how they overlap there at the end. But, maybe we see more of that as well. So the TAL definitely has a little bit of an advantage when it comes to that. Although early on in the season, they're also fighting for a pool of players that mostly are signed. So it's definitely got to be a little bit of a challenge to build those rosters for the TAL. But at the same time, they do have some advantages, right before the playoffs as these guys start to become available. But let's go ahead and transition. We've got a lot to talk about. Like I said today, we've got the AAL playoffs coming up starting tonight. So
what's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
I have no doubt that Krish might make some inflammatory Mississippi comments in a little while, but that's okay. We understand. But we're going to hit a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with the AAL segment. What better way to lead it off?
up in the pocket, has some room in front of him, gets that three-step drop, here comes the pressure, passes complete to Flowers, back to pass, pressure coming, has somebody in the end zone, touchdown! Russell, pressure's coming, Russell able to escape, still on his feet, and will be brought down at the looking, has plenty of time, has Flores at the 15, he's at the 10, and Russell has it on the outside, like I said, he ain't taking a slide, Russell steps up, lets one go, Robinson makes the circus catch. It's going to be a low snap, here comes the pressure, and the pass is going to be complete, and making the catch of Grant Russell. Russell, back to pass, looking, he has Robinson makes the catch, and will be brought down on the play by Isaiah Hall.
So this past weekend for Shady Sports Network, it was kind of a big weekend. I don't think I ever really posted anything publicly about this, but we had 5 different people at 4 different games for 3 different leagues all in one weekend. So it was pretty awesome to see how it all came together. Cody and I were at the NAL championship game. We had Matt Rizier, who has written a lot of articles on our website. If you've been paying attention to that, he was able to attend the Nashville Cats versus the Albany Firebirds. We also had Shane Majoris, another one of our writers. He's done a lot on the magazine as well. He was at the Wheeling game versus Mississippi. And then we also had Cool McCain, who was able to attend the Carolina Aviators versus the Carolina Predators as well. So obviously a lot of action that we saw this weekend, a lot of great games. And with that came some visual content that we're going to play for you guys as we kind of talk about the Wheeling game and kind of review this past week's of action. So obviously, as mentioned, here's some photos, videos from the game from Shane. Thank you to Chris Duffy and everybody with the Wheeling Miners organization who has continuously set us up with media passes throughout the season so Shane could attend the games. But obviously, Mississippi traveled out to Wheeling and got defeated by the Wheeling Miners, who look to be on their way to a championship so far. Although they do have a slight obstacle this week as they will play the Jersey Bearcats. So, Krish, I want to go to you first. First of all, I'm willing to bet you were not super surprised to see Wheeling take the victory this weekend. But how do you feel they'll fare against Jersey this weekend?
I think for Jersey, they need to look at this as a great opportunity to kind of close the gap with Wheeling. I don't think they'll win. They definitely won't win. But, if they can hold them within a touchdown, I think it'll be a big, boost for AJ and his program. I think Wheeling, they're a good team all around. Defensively, they're sound. Quarterback-wise, I think they're the best quarterback in the league, honestly. I think Darryl Clark is amazing. I would even put him ahead of Blaine Espinoza, to be honest, because I feel like he does more with less. So I think, Wheeling has a lot of talent because they were able to acquire that talent early on in the season, right? They got Raymond Cutts from Omaha. They got Deshaun Johnson, the offensive lineman who was all NAL for us in the Pirates back in the day, right? Like, these are the type of guys they're signing, and it's showing on the field. So, and they got, Brandon Munoz back from Omaha. So, just continuing to add and stack. So I think they'll do pretty well.
Interesting. I was not aware of the fact that they got Brandon Munoz back. That's a pretty big signing late in the season. What's that?
That's him in the photo, number 22.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, yeah, honestly, I was not aware of that. And honestly, like I said, that's a huge signing for them. Cody, any thoughts on the game this weekend between Mississippi and Wheeling? I'm sure you probably didn't have an opportunity to watch it, given the travel for you as well.
No, I never got the opportunity to watch it, but as if status quo remained the same, I'm sure Wheeling came out with the victory.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of something that we talked about practically all season when it comes to the AAL, where it's just kind of collision course for Wheeling and Columbus to meet in the championship. I don't think this was going to be any different. Now, this is probably going to be the closer game between the two, but at the same time, like I said, I never got the chance to watch it, so I won't try and sit there and be like, yeah, this team threw for 400 yards or whatever. But just if it was a good game, we had feet on the ground, boots on the ground, then yeah, it shows that we're getting fans out there. It shows that people are showing up regardless of who's playing and putting on an entertaining product for people to watch.
Absolutely. And obviously, again, I know AAL is not necessarily your forte, but do you have any thoughts on Wheeling versus Jersey this weekend?
I mean, not really, unfortunately. Like I said, I've been so caught up with the NAL stuff and the IFL stuff that I haven't really given my attention to the AAL, what little I can give at that point in time. So I do feel bad and I do apologize for that. But with the NAL season kind of done, then hopefully I can kind of go full collision course, full, deep dive into the championship and the rest of the playoffs.
Absolutely. The part of the why this show works, and I've always been very clear about this, is that we all kind of have our little specialties, so to speak, or the leagues that we really kind of focus in on. So that's why we are a panel and we work so well together, because all of us, each bring something to the table. So for that purpose, let's go ahead and transition over to talking about the Mississippi Wolfpack versus the Columbus Lions. So the Columbus Lions ended up getting another victory this weekend against the Jersey Bearcats. However, I will say the Jersey Bearcats in this game looked a lot more competitive than they had in the previous matchup with Columbus. And there was actually a pretty good amount of time in that game where it looked like Jersey might actually sneak out of Columbus with a win. Ultimately, they did end up losing, but now they go into this game up against Wheeling this upcoming weekend, which I feel like they might match up with a little bit better in terms of scheme fit and talent on both sides of the field. So it should be an interesting game, to say the least. But Krish, any thoughts on the Columbus and Jersey game?
Yeah, not everyone can know every league like I do, but no, I'm joking. But no, man, look, I think Mississippi is a dumpster fire. I see Coach, man, stop the glaze. Mississippi's a dumpster fire. Columbus is going to win by 50, honestly. Columbus is so dominant, and I love, and I'm not trying to compare, but I'm going to compare. People give, Eddie Strong pass. Oh, it's 1 year, it's 1 year. Look at what Roger Beck had done with less than an offseason. He transformed that whole Columbus program into one of the best run programs I've seen in a while, like off the field wise. What they got for halftime, I think they're about to sell out today. They're 25 tickets away last time I checked. So, they
Not
got
far.
SC performing at halftime. Like, it's just everything they have going in Columbus is so big and broad. So if he's doing this with limited offseason, think about what he's going to do with a full offseason. It's going to be really scary for the industry, and then he's going to build something great. And so I just think Columbus is so far ahead. Mississippi, I mean, they showed up with 12 players last week. You have Eddie Strong posting highlights of his players after losing by 40, right? So, it's sad times in Mississippi. They're taking the small wins. So for them, if they score a touchdown, it's like winning the game, even though they lose by 50. So give me Columbus. I think, William Walters is the starting quarterback for Mississippi. He was over in Columbus in training camp competing for the starting job. He lost it. That D-line is going to try to kill him tonight. And, yeah, I wouldn't even want to step off the bus if I was a Mississippi player, to be honest. It would be bad.
Well, that is one thing that we should probably point out, is the fact that Mississippi has hung in there and continued to play their games and sometimes show up underhand or shorthanded and still, manage to make it through the whole game. And obviously, it cannot be fun for any team, any player to go into an arena probably knowing ahead of time you're going to get beat. Does that contribute to some of their losses this season? Probably. When your mindset is that you're going to go in and lose immediately, your chances are your success rate drops dramatically. So, with that being said, I mean, I have heard some things, and hopefully I don't, poke the bear or say too much here, but I have heard that we should be expecting some drastic changes by Mississippi in 2027, and in a positive manner. So it sounds like they're gonna have an infusion of some help which I think Eddie Strong knows that he needs at this point. And I think that ultimately the Mississippi Wolfpack are going to come back in 2027, a whole different team. I'm honestly very excited to see what they can do with a little bit more assistance and resources behind them in 2027. So hopefully, again, I didn't go too far by saying that, but I honestly think that that the AAL they're on the way up, but to say that there weren't going to be any bumps in the road, such as Mississippi, being what they have been this season, was probably optimistic on my part this offseason. So
I'm going to say this comment from Coach Q here about, celebrating players. And we're going to look at this comment in 1 year from now when they play Columbus. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll see. Okay.
Well, I will say this, why are those players there? At the end of the day, they're there to get film. They're there for what the team can provide to them as much as they are to, for what they can provide to the team. So I think Coach Strong's doing what he has to do to not only keep players motivated, but to keep them invested and keep them there, for the rest of the season. And I think that it's really important that he does do things like that for his players, because that's the stuff that matters at this level, quite frankly. These guys, their end goal is not to play arena football for the rest of their lives, typically. If you're an older gentleman and you're on the back half of your career, maybe, arena football is the highest you'll ever go at that point, but that's okay. But I think that, a lot of the guys that are on Eddie Strong's team, or at least a good chunk of them, are younger guys that are still trying to make that leap to the UFL, to the CFL, to the NFL, or whatever it may be.
You don't think Athens is getting a team next year? You don't think Rob Keefe is trying to call all Columbus players, or some of them at least? Like Tyler Clark. That they have so many high level guys in Columbus that can play in other leagues. I promise you.
Absolutely, but
he's probably going to call all the Orlando players to get him away from there.
I'm not going to respond.
There's going to be a lot to talk about on the IFL section, as you guys can tell as well. So definitely excited to discuss all that as well, because it's going to get a little spicy, I'm sure. But very excited for 2027. Mississippi will be much better next season. Played Wheeling tough on the road. Selfless act, promote the player, open doors for them, even if it's not with your team next season. And that's exactly how I see it. Let me just tell you, and I will say this to whoever will listen, Eddie Strong is probably one of the genuinely nicest people I have ever met in indoor football. He just wants what's best for his players, and regardless of what that may mean for them. And I think that he's a rarity in the coaching realm, that he actually legitimately cares about the guys that he brings in. I think it's tough for, how things have unfolded this season and stuff like that. But I think it all boils down to resources. Eddie just doesn't have the resources that a Columbus does, So, at the end of the day, I think that's why Columbus has been able to make that leap that you talked about, Krish. And I think they've done a really good job of improving the league, improving their team, improving teams around them. And I think that they are the gold standard of the AAL currently. But that doesn't mean that the other teams can't close that gap in 2027. Let's put it this way. I think Columbus Lions are very much a finished product in the sense that they are probably at the peak of what they'll be able to provide to fans and stuff like that. How do you get much better than this upcoming halftime show? It's been unbelievable seeing some of the acts that they've got in there and stuff like that. But
we said that last halftime show. You see what I'm saying? It continues to get better and better and better, and the standard continues to be elevated just with a limited off season.
You're right. You're 100% right. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Honestly, when I saw, speaking of which, I'm blanking the name. It's Pastor Troy, right? That's the halftime show.
Yeah.
So Pastor Troy was going to be the halftime show for Columbus. I was literally flabbergasted. Yet again, another rap artist that was around all the time when I was younger. very, very well known and stuff like that. And here he is performing at a Columbus Lions game. And he's not the only act performing. That's the crazy part. They have an opener as well before the game. So it's just unbelievable amount of entertainment. And then on top of that, to sell tickets at $7.06, like Roger definitely is trying to rebuild the Lions fan base there, and he seems to be doing a really good job. But any other thoughts on the AAL before we move on?
No, definitely. I think the league is, they're trying to grow next year. I think they'll add teams. I think, Coach Q, he picked a very competitive market in San Antonio, right? They got the Gunslingers. They're number one right now. So how would they coexist, with the Gunslingers in San Antonio? So I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see the type of caliber of players. I'm interested to see who Montgomery hires, to lead their program. And I'm excited to see that. But I don't know. I feel I'm not really sold on the head coach the Wild Hogs hired. I looked at his experience, and I don't think he's a bad coach. I just, I don't know if he's ready for this league yet. But I will say with Columbus, they are building something. And one last point I'll point out about them is the amount of excuses the old ownership group used to make about how this was a small market, how everything. And it shows that if you have someone with a, progressive mindset, anything is possible. Really. So.
I like this point by Wookie. If Columbus is fielding an IFL type product and selling out, I don't see IFL being able to poach from them as successfully as IFL heads think. They're at such a high level that they're now a destination for players. I would agree. I mean, if you're from Georgia, I'm not saying that Athens isn't going to get local players, because they obviously will. But, I mean, you have a real decision to make between Columbus and the IFL. I mean, it's not like it's a real large gap there, if a gap at all, in my personal opinion. So I definitely think
the housing situation in Columbus too. Like, they put out a video. I mean, those guys are living like nicer than UFL players are. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like,
look, I like my house and I like where I live, but I would damn near trade my house for the Columbus Lions housing right now. And so that should tell you everything you want to know. I live in a pretty decent area too, so it's not like I'm living in a slum or anything like that. But they definitely are taken care of there in Columbus, and I think that's part of the reason why players would want to go play there and stay there. So definitely going to be something to watch over the next couple of years with Athens coming in there. But we will transition over to the IFL here shortly. Brian Mathern says $7, and yes, $7.06. If I'm not mistaken, you can go right to the Columbus Lions page right now, and you will look it up. And they were selling tickets for $7.06 all this week. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, your arena is like 15,000 seats, if I'm not mistaken. Krish, it's something like that, correct?
Let me check.
But anyway, it looks like the arena is very close to selling out. But yeah, has not sold out yet. But, hey, if you're watching this, and
10,000. It's 10,000 seats.
10,000. Sorry, 10,000. So 10,000 seats, and they're damn near selling out. That's going to be a really fun environment tonight. It's playoff football. They're going to play Mississippi, which is kind of a little bit more of a regional rival than Wheeling or Jersey. So should be a great game tonight. Well, I don't look at us being in Texas as a competitive situation. I will say we're building an opportunity situation. Okay. Also, the difference between Casey and Roger is resources. Casey was a great owner, but he didn't have the resources Roger has. I would agree on that as well. Resources are important, especially at this level. It can change a lot for teams. And I think I put it as Roger bought like a used Ferrari that needed, like a detail and a tune-up. And he did that tune-up and repainted the car and, slapped some turbos on it or something like that, because at this point it's a well-oiled machine. So definitely excited to see what's coming next for the AL, Columbus, everybody involved. But We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to transition over. We'll start talking about some other leagues, and we will be right back.
Into the end zone, touchdown! Russell has to step up in the pocket, has some room in front of him, gets that three-step drop, here comes the pressure, passes complete to Flowers, back to pass, pressure coming, has somebody in the end zone, touchdown! Russell, pressure's coming, Russell able to escape, still on his feet, and will be brought down at the looking, has plenty of time, has Flores at the 15, he's at the 10, and Russell has it on the outside, like I said, he ain't taking a slide, Russell steps up, let's one go, Robinson makes the circus catch. Going to be a low snap, here comes the pressure, and the pass is going to be complete, and making the catch on Grant Russell. Russell, back to pass, looking, he has Robinson makes the catch, and will be brought down on the play by Isaiah Hall.
What better way to introduce our next guest, the 2026 NAL Coach of the Year, and now 2026 NAL champion, Mr. Gary Thomas, the head coach of the Southwest Kansas Storm. Thank you for joining us this morning, Coach.
Not a problem. Bear with me here. I'm in Wichita getting ready for a travel basketball weekend. So I ran to get my wife coffee. So here we are.
Very nice. Never a dull moment in the Thomas household, it sounds like.
No weekends off.
Absolutely. So obviously I want to start this by saying, congratulations on the championship win. Obviously just played the video that I got to take, as the seconds ticked off the clock, and it was electric in the arena. But just kind of take us through the range of emotions I'm sure you felt, after the win there.
Yeah, even throughout the day, you just asked for a small portion of it, but it was, validating, gratifying. I felt amazing for the guys. I felt amazing for the owners. I felt amazing for our coaching staff. There's been a lot of ups and downs since 2024, and our staff's been, basically together since that point, since we first got started. And, all of the failed experiments along the way, and all of the crazy flights and sitting in airports and going across the country on short notice and having, you guys have been reporting on it, but I promise you it was worse going through it in the mud. But just, all of those emotions kind of coming to the surface, and knowing that you did a thing that you knew you were capable of, and you knew you could bring, to this place, and just finally kind of realizing all of those goals, aspirations, and it's just very gratifying. Probably the best word I could come up with.
Very nice. Very nice. Cody, do you have anything for Coach?
Yeah. This is going to sound kind of cheeky, but you were just a couple of points away from having a completely undefeated season. Does that play into your mind at all? Or I said it on one of the previous episodes, it kind of feels better to take that loss and get that pressure off of your shoulders. I know you don't think that way, but at the same time, realizing that you were just a couple of plays away from a completely undefeated season. I know that doesn't eat at you because you still have the trophy to hold, but is there anything that kind of crosses your mind of damn, we could have been undefeated?
Yeah, honestly, a couple things. You know, I talked to the players early in the year, as we were, kind of preparing. I think, we had kind of in my interpretation, I think we had a kind of a less than good week of practice, and it was, somewhere around, honestly, when we played maybe Salina the first time. Um, they were playing well, and not that they weren't necessarily playing well at all, but um, I said, you guys need to understand that at some point we're gonna lose. Like, people, like, look around, like, look at the NFL, look at college. Like, people don't go undefeated. Like, you just need to understand that that's just part of the process. And the looks that I got back from the guys, like, you'd have thought I had 3 years. They didn't see it that way, and so we, of course, then we go on and win, and we win, and we win. And it wasn't until we lost to Sioux City, I went in the locker room after the game, and it was like a funeral in there. And the guys were just kind of, I don't want to say freaking out, but it was just like the season had ended. And I kind of pulled them up, and I had them come in, the whole group come up, in for a big hug. And I said, guys, we're right where we want to be. I go, I promise everybody in the league would change places with us. I said, we never one time talked about being undefeated. We just talked about winning a championship. I go, and if you told me that having to lose this game to win the championship was necessary, sign me up for that 1,000 times out of 1,000.
Right.
So we did have conversations about that along the way. And in all honesty, there were, you guys were watching just like we were, but we won some very close games along the way, and we had some flaws, and we had some exposures that people didn't take advantage of, or we knew it as a coaching staff, and there was about a 6-week span there we were terrible on the kickoff team, but we were winning, so we just kind of kicked the can down the road and said, oh, it'll all work itself out, until it didn't work itself out anymore. And that loss kind of allowed us to kind of take a step back and kind of get the guys on. When you start tweaking stuff and you're winning, people start going, oh, what's he doing? Why is he doing that? And so, that loss allowed us to get everybody's attention, to start addressing some of the flaws that we knew as coaches internally that we had.
Right.
And it kind of helped us get back on track.
Krish, do you have anything for Coach?
Yeah, Coach, good to see you. One of my questions is, this offseason, do you anticipate testing the free agency market, or are you returning to Southwest Kansas for 2027?
God, I really thought you were going to talk about players there for a second when you said free agents. I've told most people that will listen, I'm not even going to think about football for about a month. And so far I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. Right now I'm enjoying this. I'm just not necessarily too worried about what's to come. I'm right where I need to be right now, and I'm enjoying the ride. If somebody reached out to me, I would talk to them, because I talk to everybody. But we're pretty deep rooted in this place too, as some of you guys may know. As being a business owner and the other things that I got going on in my world, it would be hard to get me to consider leaving the area, not necessarily, not coaching or anything like that. But, my intention is not to test the free agent market, but somebody wanted to talk and somebody had something to present. I mean, I would always listen, but, our ownership group's been very good to me. They've given me a lot of, a lot of license to build this thing, however I wanted to, and they support, everything that we've done along the way, and those loyalties run deep here too.
That's fair point. Fair point. I had a feeling Krish was going to ask that at some point. I mean, you got the Coach of the Year award on your resume now, the championship win and everything. So
yeah, I need to talk to Krish. I need to talk to Krish's banner guy. We're looking at getting something up in the airport, and I just want to know if he knows a guy that we can start working with to get a design made.
I'm pretty sure Krish knows the guy, or he knows a guy that knows a guy. One way or
Perfect.
another.
Perfect.
That's awesome. So I have to ask, I mean, obviously, one of the things that I've seen a lot in terms of criticisms on Southwest Kansas has been that point differential situation. It seems like virtually no matter who you guys play, it's always a close game. So I wanted to give you a moment to kind of speak on that and why that might be the case for any fan who's questioning why you're not, necessarily blowing out a team like Louisiana or something like that.
Well, I mean, that was the opener, and that was 15 weeks ago after a 12-hour bus ride, and we didn't even know what we were going to look like, at that point in time. I don't know if that's the greatest example, but I know there's plenty of other examples. I've looked at that myself, and what can we do better, and how can we be more efficient, and the only thing I can kind of come up with is, I'm not a huge yeller and screamer. At practice we just try to be efficient and call me whatever label you want to put on me, but players coach or something like that, and maybe it is I just have a different perspective on the entire thing now that I'm doing this versus doing it in college and having it be my sole source of income to feed my family. I just kind of have a different outlook on it and try to I try not to go, the last thing I want to do is have to yell and scream at people when I leave work to go to work, after hours. I just don't want to live my life like that. And so, we have a good relationship with the players. We do hold them accountable and things like that, but, we get along with them, really well. We have a different operational style here. We only brought 26 guys into camp. We learned some things along the way that numbers aren't necessarily always, the best thing for us here personally. But the only thing I can think of is maybe it's my coaching style. That maybe the guys are complacent at times, or maybe they're just a little too comfortable for the situation. I don't know, but what I also think the flip side of that is we're comfortable in those games. We don't panic. We feel like we're always within arm's distance of winning, and that confidence I think has helped us specifically in this situation here.
Some kind words here from Ricky Burtz. An average team can beat anyone on any given day when they play their best. A great team finds a way to win even when they don't play their best. At the end of the day, Southwest Kansas was and is a great team regardless of the final score. They got the win, which is all that matters.
Appreciate that, Ricky.
Yeah.
Appreciate it a lot.
Definitely. So I got to see it firsthand the past 2 weeks. It was a blast in Dodge City. And honestly, I was impressed at the crowd turnout at the championship game. It was on both sides, really. Salina traveled well as well, but just a great environment. Shout out to the fans and the crowd that showed up and really made it loud there at the end. But Cody, your ring size is 8.
Look, I got small hands. Okay, I'm not de-washing. You can just throw it up and I go and get it. Okay, got it.
All right, fair
Don't
point.
judge me.
So Cody's ring will be on the way once I have a visual confirmation of his tattoo that he told me he was getting after the semifinal game.
I mean, I said you guys need to win the championship. Now I need to go get a consultation. So that's the next thing.
You and me both, brother.
Oh man, here we go. We'll have to get that done live on the camera now, Cody.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take Snapchats and throw an Instagram reel on there. I don't care, but I'll hold up to my end of the bets on that Krish.
Yeah, Krish, actually, come to think of it, I'm going to have to go back and look back at some of the bets that we made. But Cody, do you have any other questions for Coach Thomas?
Just I got a couple, but one of them's really stupid. When did you realize that the play, just throw it up to D-Wash and he'll catch it? When did you realize that play would work? And you're like, we're just going to do that every game.
He talks about it a lot. It's just hard to convince me that that's always just going to be a thing. But he's right more than he's wrong. He is an unbelievable just tracker of the football. Little known fact, he drops, 5 out of 10 balls at practice if you throw it to him. But in the game, he is, he just sees the game through a different lens than everybody else. You know, he understands where to be, when to be there, how to get there, timing, spacing. And again, I think between the two of us and what I've had to learn along the way, and just changing the way that he looks at the game as well, with, you know, the structure of the outdoor game and the attention to detail that I bring, and some of the you know, some of the things that he brings, which is the indoor style, which is just, hey, there's green grass over there, go there. And I'm like, whoa, that's not how the play is designed. If you go over there, then we're not getting the proper horizontal or vertical stretch on a certain. And so I think he's taught me as much as I've taught him, and just trying to, you know, create a product that you know, can be competitive, and you know, that's been through, I don't want to say growing pains, you know, nothing uncomfortable, but just, you know, kind of finding our identity as well. You know, we had, you know, quietly, you know, I told, well, he ended up being the MVP, spoiler alert, but you know, when I look at, you know, how we've evolved, you know, Matt Struck was a pretty big part of the run game for us early, and was effective, you know, not to the point where we were trying to, you know, push the ball to him, but you know, Mason Pierce allowed us to take a lot of pressure off of Jaden and the quarterback in the run game of having to be such a big part of it, and just being creative in that way. You know, we bring him in that motion behind, and we do it out of about 3 or 4 different formations, and we block that, honestly, probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 different ways, that all have, depending on who we're going against and how they play the backside, or how they filter a guy into the box once the motion happens, or how they you know, how they play the secondary behind it, if they're heel lining and all that kind of stuff. So we have all these different blocking schemes, and then, you know, we added you know, a couple play actions off of it, and you know, we added just a couple things to keep people honest from chasing us on the backside all the time. And
Right.
you know, it's been a really good fit for us in the evolution of who we became, you know, this year. And he just, you know, spoiler alert again, happens to be really good at it, and a really talented ball carrier. You know, the challenge for us is, you know, he had kind of an outdoor mentality from the receiver aspect of it, which is, you know, kind of who he was his entire collegiate career. But, you know, having him learn, you know, the indoor game, and, you know, that going fast all the time isn't always the right answer, and, you know, how to tempo and how to, you know, do all those kinds of things. He's a talented catcher of the football, but he's special when he gets the ball in his hands. You know, so for us, trying to manufacture touches in different ways, to showcase all of the things that he can do to make us the football team that we thought we could be and that we needed to be.
Right. Final question I have for you. This is going to be a blast from the past, but being a huge fan of football, as we all are, you were on Last Chance U, and I want to pick your brain a little bit. One, how cool was it to realize that, like, some of the players that you were coaching and going up against are either still in the arena game, like Carlos Thompson, a Malik Henry, whoever it could be? And how does that kind of translate to what you're doing as a coach in the indoor game, where compared to junior college, you've only got these guys for a couple of years before they either go to a different team, and you can equate that to a different league or different team within the league, or whatever the case could be. Do you think that being the coach in Dodge City at that time really set you up for the success that you have now?
You know, it didn't make me any smarter or anything like that. You know, coaching's coaching, but it does give me a little bit of credibility, I think. You know, after the Billings game last year, I talked to Malik a little bit, and we kind of reminisced a little bit and laughed, and just a lot of those guys along the way that either, you know, we've recruited here. It does help, you know, it always helps in recruiting when you can say, I know so-and-so, and they're like, oh yeah, that's one of my really good friends. You know, sometimes you have to connect the dots so you're not, you know, a stranger to them, and it does help them as well when they can call a guy. You know, getting Trey Self here wasn't as complicated as people thought it was, because Trey is friends with Jalen Morton, and they work out together in the Dallas area. So, you know, Trey reached out to Jalen, and Jalen said, absolutely, go to that place. They'll treat you right. They'll coach you really well. they'll give you an opportunity. Now that has nothing to do with Last Chance U, even though Trey was at Butler at the time. But it does help you with some credibility things, and people just name recognition and things of that sort always help in the recruitment aspect. From a coaching, I don't know that most coaches probably care and probably think very much of the show. Honestly, I really didn't. It just, was a thing, and people asked me and I was like, yeah, I was on there both seasons, but I don't know from a career standpoint, I don't know that was the pinnacle. But it does have some value in this game, a little bit, and I think that's how.
Yeah, that's it. I remember I was like, all right, so you were the head coach at Dodge City. And I was like, let's look at some of the players that you were there. And I remember seeing like Jordan Seminot and a couple of others that they escape my brain. But I'm like, man, these guys are either still playing in the arena and indoor game, or like they just recently got out, or, they've been veterans for a while. So I'm like, it's kind of crazy to think that just junior colleges have been able to promote some of these guys that you see on these Saturdays and Sundays and stuff like that, winning championships in the NAL or the IFL or whatever the case could be.
Yeah, and there's still guys playing. Lorenzo Thompson, who was playing wide receiver for Omaha there in the semifinals. He played for me here in Dodge. That was before the show, but Quan Draco, who played for Omaha and played for Southwest Kansas, and San Diego and a bunch of other ones. Again, he was before the show as well. But I was going through the list one time, going through NFL guys that we had and CFL guys that we had, and going through that list. And then I was like, man, this, they're playing indoor. So then I started tracking that list. That list got pretty long, honestly, between, all of the leagues that were around at that point. And they're starting to filter out now. I haven't coached college since 2018. So a lot of those guys have kind of moved on and done other things, but there's still a few that are floating around.
Chris, you got anything else for Coach?
Yeah, my final question for you, Coach, is, in my opinion, the most underrated player on your team is Jelani Baker. When I watch Jelani Baker on film, man, I think he's that next level, type.
Sorry, somebody's.
Oh no, I'm saying the most underrated player, in my opinion, on your team is Jelani Baker. When I watch the tape, just everything he does for you. Talk about his development. Obviously, you got him from Vegas to come over after camp. How much has he grown throughout the season?
Quite a bit. Jelani is a really, really good person. Comes from a good family. Got a lot of talent. He's got a lot to learn in the indoor game. Just kind of all the things that we talked about. Everybody's got a lot. I still have a lot to learn in the indoor game. But Jelani's got he's got good speed. He's got good length. He's got great hands. Tracks the ball really well. Great hand-eye coordination. Just a great teammate. But that was kind of D-Wash kind of took Jelani under his wing a little bit and was trying to teach him kind of the inner workings of, hey, this is what I see. This is how I see it. This is why I see it. And when this happens, go here. And when you're running the route, a lot of things that guys struggle with in the indoor game is, they're playing checkers. They're not playing chess. And the guys like D-Wash are playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. And Jelani and a lot of young receivers, this game is so compact. So if you're always moving fast, you're inevitably going to run out of room, unless you're going deep. But it's how do I tempo, but if that guy's in my way, how do I make that guy move? And again, it's the same as the outdoor game. It's just it happens faster and there's less space and all those things. So being able to stem guys and using high motion to your advantage, and trying to maximize the on the offensive side, I tell people like the main advantage that we have is going fast. Why would you want to take the one advantage that they give you, and why would you want to take the one advantage that they give you and then not use it to your maximum potential? So yes, Jelani's underrated, probably a great description of him. Phenomenal player, but I mean, an even better person. I mean, if you had a chance to spend some time with him, just a really, really enjoyable teammate, person, just really enjoyed the experience of having the opportunity to be around him.
And then my final question for you is, this is kind of, a fastball, but do you believe you guys would be a playoff team in the IFL today?
I don't. So that's a loaded question. It's a fastball, but it's a fair question. I see some of the polls that come out, and what have you, and like comparing us to even an AF1 team is just like it's comparing apples to like kangaroos. Like it's not. The teams are built so different that the comparison. If we played an AF1 team, if we played arena, they'd probably kill us. We wouldn't be able to probably protect the quarterback. But I promise you this, we'd probably kick them in the teeth in indoor. They're just not set up for it. Same as it's what's the old saying? Six one way, half dozen the other. But in the IFL, it's hard to say because I don't get honestly a chance to watch much of it. I see kind of highlights that you guys put out there, but as far as like sitting down and just watching a game, I can tell you that in the build up for this, we screen captured off of YouTube a few IFL games and put them into our editing system and stuff like that, so we could just kind of see how different leagues were playing. How are they defending certain things? How are they, when you get into this formation, what's the most common way that we might see of how people are going to attack us? Just when you're trying to put together an offense, and you're literally, I had never done indoor football. I've watched it, but I've never actually studied the nuts and bolts of it, of how do people defend certain things? Like, what are they even capable of on the defensive side of the ball? You'll figure it out by the middle, but you don't want to open up 0-4 and then say, okay, now I know, now I'm ready to get started on what they might do to me. And in all honesty, like even in the championship game there, Salina defended us very different than they had for their first 12 games, and I had to kind of wait and see and wade through that just to see what they were going to do. And I thought maybe, in my head, well, they have 7 days to prepare. They played 12 games. We're probably going to get the old expression, when people tell you who they are, you should believe them. I thought they were going to be very, very similar to what they had been most of the year, and they honestly were not as much in the championship game. So that took a little getting adjusted to. But to answer your question, I had broke down some IFL stuff before the year, but I have not watched a game the entire season. But based on what I saw, getting back to your quote unquote fastball, I think we would be a competitive football team. The things that I don't know, again, I don't know roster limitations. I don't know, how they operate. What I feel confident telling you is that in the way that we operate, I don't know how it would play out over 16 weeks or whatever it is that they do. That's a different animal. We just finished game number 12. We would have 4. You're just talking about how injuries stack up, and what I can tell you is we're very different in how we do terminology and stuff like that. It's a little more challenging for us to take a player on Tuesday and put him on the field on Saturday. We're not using a number system. We're using names and signals and no huddle, and so all of those things I know would be a detriment in trying to navigate an IFL season because of the turnover that you almost certainly will have from injury. And I don't know how many they're allowed to keep, kind of on the sidelines and things like that, for injury stuff. But I do know, again, just use us as an example. We brought, I think, 26 into camp, and we had maybe 4 transactions throughout the entire season. That seems like an extremely low number for any league. And again, could we, if we played 10 seasons in a row, could we duplicate that number over and over again? Probably not. Last year we were 7-2, and we're sitting there as the 2 seed, and we had 5 season into injuries in the last 2 weeks of the season. We go to Nashville in the playoffs and had to fly a guy he drove in, but had to bring a guy there who had never practiced with us just so we had enough people to play the game. And he played jack linebacker and kind of blended in and what have you. But, those are things that I just don't have answers to. What I can tell you is I think the team that we just put out there on Sunday at full strength, I think can compete in most leagues as constructed. I think we had a lot of answers. I thought the secondary was as good as anybody I've seen on TV. I think our linebacker play and our defensive line I think was pretty talented and solid. The offensive line got us where we needed to go. They weren't flashy, but they were consistent. Quarterback play I thought was pretty good. Jaden's a tremendous player. I thought the wide receiving core, again, not flashy, but they complement each other really, really well, and they made us a very, very well-rounded football team and very difficult to defend. How that answers your question, I don't know. I think, like I said, and if we're comparing perfect world to perfect world, I think that's a competitive football team in most leagues. Does that mean we would go 13-3 in the IFL? Probably not. I'm a realist. We would probably have to tweak, how we operate here from a transactional standpoint and kind of see the game a different way a little bit, knowing what we would be up against. But I don't know if that answered your question or dodged it, but that's all I got.
No, I think that's a fair answer. It's a pretty nuanced question, to be completely honest. So
I can't hear you guys.
Uh-oh. All right. Well, we'll leave you with that. Thank you for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in a later date. All right. Well, unfortunately, it looks like we lost Coach there, but no big sweat. Appreciate him for joining this morning. Obviously, he's probably a busy guy. He just won a championship. And honestly, I'm kind of surprised he even had the time to join us. But we're going to hit a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to talk about the AF1.
Hi, everyone. This is TJ from Shady Sports Network. I am excited and proud to be the first one to announce that we as a network are introducing a digital magazine, official one called Shady Sports Magazine. As many of you know, the bread and butter of our network is covering arena and indoor football, and that's exactly what this magazine is going to be about. It is going to be the first ever arena and indoor football central magazine, all the leagues included. You're going to also have a bunch of articles in there about past teams going down memory lane. It's just going to be a one-stop shop for the already diehard fan. It's going to be an easy spot to get all of your info, no matter which league or however many of the leagues you may watch. And for the new fan or the casual fan, it may help you turn into a diehard fan now, because you're going to be able to get all the info super quick and easy, sent directly into your email. We will announce in the upcoming weeks when the inaugural issue is going to be released. And believe me, we will definitely keep you updated on our shows and network as a whole on how to sign up for that list to get it. Email for free every month. Thank you to the fans. And thank you for everyone watching. As always, like, follow, share, subscribe, and most important, enjoy the show and keep watching. Thank you, and see you guys later.
All right. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Sorry about the audio issues there at the end with Coach Thomas. I'm glad we got him on and we're able to have him on to discuss the championship win. And obviously, congratulations to the team. I got Cody, I'm sure you got the same opportunity. We got to talk to the owners while we were out there. And I know all of them were very excited about the game and honestly, very, very impressed by the turnout by the crowd there. So kudos to the Dodge City faithful. They definitely showed out, and it was a lot of fun getting to meet some of the fans out there, and I had a great time. So
yeah, can I touch on that really quick before we go AF1?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So the 3 experiences that I've had out there, the 2 Omaha games and then the Salina championship, I'll wax poetic really quick and then we'll transition. That's what a community is for me, at least. Like, that's not to knock any other team in any other league or anything like that, but to see an entire area, whether it's from Dodge City, Garden City, anywhere within that Western Kansas footprint, or even Colorado, where you're from, man, or even me driving all the way out from Kansas City, to have an entire community rally behind a team. And we had fans from Salina drive down. We had fans from Omaha in the playoff games and stuff like that come down too. It shows you the support that the cities have behind Dodge City, the players, the coaches, the owners, everything and anything included. And like I said, what they've done for myself, for my family, what they've done for you and your family and everything like that, I couldn't be more impressed. I couldn't be more amazed. I know we've said it in the private chat and stuff like that, but I've been absolutely blown away by the hospitality and just how well the NAL has done from this last offseason to the end of the season. Like, it is, like I said, for me, I've said this before, the NAL to me was kind of an afterthought of just like, yeah, whatever, they're not the IFL, blah, blah, blah. It has really kind of just blown my socks off to be like, okay, this is something where it might not look, all the dasher boards are the same or what, blah, 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 who cares? But the product on the field and the people that are playing the games and coaching the games and the fans that show up and everything like that, it is leaps and bounds better than any expectation I had. And I didn't really have any expectations going into it. It has made me a fan for life. And I just, like I said, it's made me fall right back in love with the sport. And something I want to say to anyone watching, go find your local team and support them. They're 5.5 hours away. I mean, Iowa's probably more local. Omaha's probably more local of a team in terms of distance. But like, once you find your team, once you find your spot and you're like, hey, this is an amazing thing, you will fall in love with that sport. And that's the reason why the community, the indoor and arena community and everything like that, it's so awesome to see everyone rally behind anyone and everyone when it comes to your team, your league, things like that. It's just, I don't know. I'm tripping over my words here because I have too many nice things to say about what the NAL has done, what Southwest Kansas has done. It's just leaps and bounds what I thought it would be.
Yeah, honestly, like I said just a moment ago, I was so impressed by the crowd the last 2 weeks. I never expected it to be like that. I mean, I told Coach Thomas after the game that that's probably top 2 games. The championship game was probably top 2 games I've ever attended in my life. The atmosphere was unlike anything I had experienced, outside of an AFL game, back in 2005 when, the Pepsi Center at the time was sold out and there was like 20,000 fans in there. So, I mean, that kind of gives you an idea. I mean, obviously United Wireless Arena, I think, is like 5,000 seats. And it wasn't even sold out. I mean, you can see in the videos that there's still open seats, but trust me when I say it was extremely loud in that arena the entire time. And that last drive by Salina, it showed, there was 2 different false start penalties that I think were primarily caused by the crowd. And one thing that I thought was really cool is at one point you see the defensive players for Southwest Kansas out on the field and they're kind of amping up the crowd. They're all, kind of waving their arms, trying to get the crowd to be loud. And I think that part right there was it was something I've never got to experience in person. And it was really cool. It was a really good game. And I also want to say kudos to Salina. They took over an entire section of the arena. And actually there was another little section behind the bench, like almost
2 sections.
Yeah, exactly. And it was impressive. They were loud. They brought noisemakers. So as soon as, Salina was doing something on defense, they were making noise. And it was just a really good game. And sincerely from, I know I've given the NAL a lot of a hard time at times about their execution on some things, but if you want to talk about execution, you couldn't have asked for a better championship game. That was an amazing game from start to finish. It literally came down to the last second on the clock, and it was unbelievable. It was a great game.
Well, there was no seconds on the clock. It was an untimed down.
True. True. Good point. Good point. I didn't think about it that way, but
Yeah, because if you look at the comment, what Adam said, he's like, is the middle finger heard around the world? I mean, to get a penalty and just be like, all right, well, we're going to squib it with 2 seconds left, and then they get the banked penalty to move them even closer and get an untimed down because you can't end it on a defensive penalty or whatever it was. And I was just like, all right, so Salina's going to get a shot, and what should have been like a Hail Mary from like their 10 or 15 or whatever turned out to be, hey, it's like a 14-yard pass or whatever it was. And you're just like, all right, so there's a chance they lose this here because someone decided to flip off the other team.
yeah, that was a boneheaded penalty for sure. I mean, in that moment, that's definitely something you cannot do. And it opened up the possibility for a potential loss there at the end, which I think just added that little bit of an extra wrinkle there at the end of the game, because it was like the crowd erupted as soon as the kickoff returner got tackled, and then the ref struggled to like announce it over the crowd that there was one untimed down, and then as soon as the fans realized what was going on, it got really quiet. And then all of a sudden, the defense kind of like got them back up and involved, and then they got back invested. But
one player I just want to give credit to too is Tyree Adams. For him to come in mid-season and the leadership he provided for Salina to lead them to the championship game. Like, I really hope they bring him back next year, because I think he'll be an MVP candidate, most definitely.
100%. And I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion that if he's not back outdoors, he'll probably be back with Salina. Obviously he was in the CFL for a couple of years with Ottawa, and honestly, if it weren't for injuries, he probably would still be in the CFL. He never really got an opportunity to start up there while he was up there, and every time the opportunities presented itself, he was injured, unfortunately. So played really well, extremely elusive in the open field. Like I said, one of the best games I've ever witnessed. So kudos to the NAL. I know there were some bumps in the road for the league along the way, but I think ultimately they can look back on this season and look back very proud of themselves for what they accomplished and what the league accomplished in general, because it was a great game. The playoffs were amazing. I think the best teams made it in. I think there wasn't a ton of controversy in terms of who got there and how they got there. So, great season all the way around for the NAL. And like I said, I think they should be proud.
Thank me for the extra 200,000 views for my off-season rankings and my articles I put out. So, thank me, because my stuff got more views than your stuff ever will. So.
Oh Lord, Krish.
And Inside the Walls is shutting down too. You heard yeah.
When, what?
No, we'll talk about it later, but yeah.
All right.
Go in there and make it about you.
Just saying, man, times are tough, right? You only got one person to call, and tired of me or nothing. So,
Interesting. So real quick before we move on, I have done a really bad job of reminding everybody that this is still a thing going on that we're doing. If you would like to win a piece of the Sioux Falls Storm turf, I actually have it right here. You take very simple steps, completely free to enter, and you can have a chance to win. So follow Indoor and Arena Football History on TikTok and or Facebook. Find the contest keyword. I'll give you a hint. Join our mailing list at shadysportsnetwork.com. Comment contest keyword live during Around the Indoor Football World. It doesn't matter any episode. If I see you comment it and you're signed up for the list, you're automatically entered. So we'll see you at 8 a.m. every Saturday for your chance to enter that and win. Like I said, super easy to enter. We're just literally doing the same thing that every other network ever does. I'm trying to build out our mailing list for our magazine, among other things. So that is another reason why you might want to sign up for that mailing list. You will get the magazine going forward as well. So on that note, let's transition over to the AF1. And once again, as I discussed in the lead up, we had a guy at the Nashville and Albany game. So let's go ahead and kick off with the new, or that game, reviewing that game. And obviously the big storyline that came out of this game is that Albany has now lost 2 games in a row. And they are suddenly looking up at the Nashville Cats, who are in first place. So, Krish, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Nashville came out. They established a line of scrimmage, and they went toe-to-toe with Albany. Sam Castanova threw 10 touchdowns. Albany's offense is great. Their defense is, it's ass. It's funny because Ben McCoy used to watch the show, and now he's been awfully quiet since the defense hasn't been performing. So it might be time to get back in the lab, Ben. But no, look, at the end of the day, they need to make changes to the defense, and they need to add some more personnel. They're injured. Damon Ware loves to say they're hurt, right? I mean, every team is hurt at this point in the season. So you got to find a way to find a way. They also like to say in Albany that Albany-Nashville 2.0 is the biggest game of the season. It's actually not. July 11th is not the biggest game of the season because if Nashville can find a way to score, so the tiebreaker in the AF1, it goes win percentage is number one, and the second tiebreaker points scored, right? So if Nashville is ahead of Albany right now by 10 points, so if they can continue to just keep pace, even if they split with Albany 1-1, they'll still get the number one seed. So it's something interesting to know. I mean, if I'm Nashville, I'd rather get the number 2 seed and beat Albany in the championship. Obviously I want a home playoff game and all that, but it matters more to win, at the end. So I think, it's a good game. It's good for the league, right? It shows some parity. Albany doesn't run the league. I mean, it's now finally getting to a point where we can say it's a little competitive at least. It's good.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really good fact to point out.
Look at Malik Honeycutt, though, man. I mean, Malik Honeycutt shouldn't be in the AF1, man. He's way too talented.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought you meant that in a bad way, but no, Malik Honeycutt he's incredibly good. Incredibly good. He definitely should be outdoors at this point. I mean, speak of the devil right here. So unbelievable return by Nashville here.
Horrible technique, though. Who's the special teams coach in Albany? Is it one of Damon Ware's friends he coaches at the small college with, or what are we doing? I don't understand. It's just bad.
That is a crazy statement about Albany. We all know that they don't do anything on a small budget. So I think I accidentally put the kickoff and return in there twice, but let's be honest, I'm not going to be disappointed that we get to watch it twice here. Just unbelievable return by him. But yeah, and also shout out to Nashville. It's really obviously kind of hard to tell from that angle, but our guy Matt was literally right up on the field, could not get any closer if you tried. And obviously they provided us with the media passes to be able to attend that game. So shout out to Nashville. Really, really awesome of them to provide that with us. And if you haven't checked it out, we put out an article on the website, shadysportsnetwork.com, about this experience as well. So from everything that Matt said, nothing but stand-up individuals there with Nashville. They treated him first class. They gave him all the access he could possibly want. And then he also said the crowd was amazing. They were very, very cordial with him and his friend that attended the game with him. And then, also the F&M Bank and Arena is just a beautiful venue as well. So,
it's a lot of people think, oh, we don't like the AF1, this and that. I think the AF1 has good building blocks, right? They just need to continue to build. That's the problem is they build, they go 2 steps forward and 5 steps back every year. And so now it's a time when you really need to look at the strong teams you have, try to retain them in the offseason and grow and build, and bring in good franchise, not a team like Oceanside. I was listening to Albany's podcast the other night, and he's sitting there saying Oceanside has an amazing owner, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, what do you mean? The guys aren't even getting paid. How can you even say that, So they need to pipe down a little bit in Albany, especially Jeff Levesque, who thinks he has all the answers when he doesn't. So it's reality.
All right, that's one person's opinion for sure. So we actually missed some NAL topics, but not a big deal.
What's the big thing in the NAL that we missed?
Just some transactions, not a big deal. So one of the big pieces of news that I thought was interesting is Cheesy Umanakwe, who was a linebacker, fullback, played some defensive end for Albany. He has requested his release and been let go. He is now a free agent looking for his next opportunity. So very interesting to hear that. It seems like there has been a lot more turnover in Albany, specifically at that linebacker position than I remember in recent memory. So kind of interesting there. Cody, any thoughts on the Nashville Albany game or that transaction?
I mean, I think it's kind of weird how they're already going through like a bunch of roster turnover with a couple of losses. Like the world is ending when it's really not. But at the same time, you don't want to lose 2 in a row. I don't know. I'm not saying that they're coming crashing back down to the earth. It's still Albany's world, in my opinion. But at the same time, this is like a reflecting kind of thing of like, all right, where are we going with this? And maybe, and this is going to sound bad, but like, had the winning gotten so stagnant where it's like, all right, we're just going to come out, and we're going to do our thing, a business trip, whatever slogans and stuff you want to use, and then they get caught off guard, and then they get caught off guard again, where it's just like, all right, now we need to sit there and be like, hey, punch in the mouth twice, let's get back to it and go back to our winning ways. So, like I said, there's no panic or anything when it comes to it. Nashville is clearly the better team, and they look like the better team right now. But as I've said throughout the entire time we've been, talking AF1 season, is literally one game in the championship. That's all it takes. So Albany can win that. It could be Nashville. It could be anyone else in that league. It just takes one upset, takes one victory. But I mean, I'm not an Albany fan, but I'm also not trying to get off that Albany bandwagon. I think they still are, at least in my opinion, that front runner for the championship.
Fair point for sure. A couple other transactions from the AF1 that should be noted. Washington seems to be loading up for a playoff run here. They signed linebacker Giovanni Williams. He is actually related to Quinnen Williams, I believe, of the New York Jets. And Quincy Williams, right? His other. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And then Andrew Boyle, a kicker, they've brought in as well. They have also signed 2 of the players that just won an NAL championship with Southwest Kansas. They will be bringing in Dom Moore as well as Jamel Wynn. So pretty good signings there for them. Really a kind of a handful of signings there. And we actually recently posed a question on Facebook. If you haven't had a chance to go answer it, we would love to get your answer on there. But we actually asked, who's the more dangerous team down the stretch? Is it Washington or is it Michigan? So if you guys want to answer that in the chat now, that'd be great. If you want to go answer it on the post, that's great as well. But any other thoughts or anything else you guys wanted to discuss specifically revolving the AF1?
Yeah, outside my picks for this weekend, we got some good games on tap for the AF1. But, for me, like I look at Chizu Manakwe, right? Obviously, big part of Vegas' championship run last year. He's went to Central Connecticut State, so he's semi-local to Albany. For them not to be able to retain a player like that, it says something about what's going on. I actually spoke to Cheesy, just privately, but I've known him here for a while, so he's a good guy. But it just sucks to see because he wasn't really thrilled with his experience down in Albany, and you just wonder like when you hype up a player so much in the offseason and then they decide to leave on their own terms, is it really as good as they say it is? I'm not questioning that, but it's just kind of weird, a little strange to me. But I hope Cheesy goes to a good team, man. There's a lot of teams in the IFL that should be after Cheesy,
I mean, if you're Vegas, do you bring him back?
You bring it back. If you're Arizona, do you look at him? DJ Lundy, the linebacker out of FSU, is hurt. So would you sign him? San Diego. Like, there's so many teams that should try to be signing him right now. He's so talented.
Yeah, agreed. And a little aside, I actually tried to recommend him to Albany, I think 2 years ago, because he's actually from New York and wanted to play close to home, obviously. Damon Ware did not initially sign him. Granted, he had some veterans that were on the roster at the time and all that, but it ended up signing him this offseason after the championship win with Vegas. So it's unfortunate it didn't work out there. Obviously, like I said, he's from New York. I was hoping it would work out for him, but ultimately, I'm sure he'll find another place to play. Adam says, I think Michigan is more dangerous than Washington, but I may be a bit biased. What does the panel think? Cody, who do you think is more dangerous, Washington or Michigan? And I guess we'll find out tonight in this game.
I think Michigan's probably a little bit more dangerous in my opinion. That's not to discredit Washington, but it's kind of like what we've talked about. Michigan's, I think, played a tougher schedule. Washington does not have the benefit of playing against Oregon anymore. But to, show my ass and plead my ignorance, I don't remember what the remaining schedule is since they jumbled it up and had to redo it with Oregon getting kicked out. So I don't know what the remaining schedule looks like for both teams. It could benefit Washington a little bit. I think it might benefit Michigan, but I personally think Michigan is a little bit better of a team. But we'll figure it out here soon, won't we?
Yeah, definitely perfect timing for this game and that graphic. Shout out to our guy TJ, who is constantly putting out some engaging content on the Facebook page. You guys should definitely follow along if you don't already. We love to hear your guys' answers on all the questions he asks. But Triple McGee says, absolutely, Cody. Albany's offense was way better than National in that game. And he also says linebacker play is different in those leagues, which is accurate. But let's not forget that Cheesy played in the IFL first, and then he went over to the Albany to play the AF1. He's played multiple positions, whether it's fullback or linebacker or defensive end. So he's kind of a unique player in the fact that he can play either rule set. It may just alter the position you kind of are evaluating him at. So on that note, I could see him landing in the AF1. I could see him landing in the IFL. I doubt we see him the TAO. We could maybe even see him overseas, in Europe or something like that. So anyway, back to our picks. We've got 2 games tonight, Beaumont versus Nashville and Michigan versus Washington. What I like about these 2 games tonight is they don't overlap. So you can watch both games. It's basically a true doubleheader. One starts at 5 p.m. Eastern time. The other starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So, Krish, I'll start with you for your picks.
Yeah, so Beaumont, they brought back Clinton Solomon to run the offense. Last week was kind of, a rough outing for him. Obviously, they went against Oceanside, which is a bona fide semi-pro team at this point. They only scored 21 offensive points. Obviously, Solo, he shined at best. Obviously, and he wants to run the style. He brought back Robinson at quarterback. That's his boy from Beaumont before when they won a championship together. So you figured he would bring him back, at the starting quarterback role. They're going against Nashville. Their D-line is crazy. Their defense is good. Their offense is good. So Beaumont needs to stay competitive in this game. If they have any chance, it's going to be on defense. Their defense needs to make a stop or two. They have good talent on defense. If you look at that defense on paper should be way better. I mean, they have Drake Kirkwood from UCLA, a guy who had a 78.3, pro football focus grade, right? Like, this is a guy, high-level player from UCLA. Asias Gandy, obviously defensive, one of the top defensive players in the league last year in the NAL. So Beaumont should be a lot better than they are. So I hope Beaumont can stay competitive. I don't think so. I think Nashville will win this game by 25 points. Michigan and Washington, the question that was posed earlier about, which team is better, in my opinion, I think Michigan is better. I told Akil this last night. I'm like, man, you guys look great, but I'm not sold on your program at all. I think your program's overhyped. I told him that. Really, I do. I believe it. I mean, they beat Oregon 3 times in Oceanside, and they beat one good team, Kentucky, right? And I will go as far to say if Kentucky started Shea Spencer last week, they would have won, right? They need to go back to Shea Spencer. Overstreet, he has talent, but you can tell he's not really picking up the game as fast as Coach Walker or Coach Gray would like in Kentucky. So they need to go back to Shea Spencer. But Michigan, Malik, the best quarterback in the league right now, he's going to win MVP for a reason. I think Michigan will win this game. But that Washington defense, man, oh my God. D. Millie had those boys playing out of their mind, 17 interceptions in 9 games. That's insane. So just give me Michigan, though, by 5 points. It'll be a back and forth, I think. How about the quarterback, though, in Washington, Eric Phoenix? He made a lot of good throws, thread the needle really well. South Carolina State product. You love to see it, so it's good.
Cody, what about you, for my friend?
Yeah, the first one shouldn't even really be anything. Let's go ahead and just go with Nashville. They're coming off their victory against Albany. They're probably riding high a little bit. Yeah, Beaumont got a win, but I'm going to take the team that's a little more polished when it comes to that. So give me Nashville. And then, like I said, what kind of dummy would I be if I'm like, Michigan looks better than Washington, and then I pick Washington? So that's what I'm just kidding. No, I'm not going to do that. I think Michigan's going to take this victory. Like, to Krish's credit, Washington has played Oregon too many times. They've beaten Oceanside. They beat Oceanside, I think, who it was. They've beaten Beaumont. Those aren't teams that kind of move the needle for me. Yes, they beat Kentucky, but yes, they went toe-to-toe with Albany earlier in the season. But for the most part, I still have not seen enough to be impressed by Washington. They've rattled off wins. Don't get me wrong. They're a product of what their schedule is. You can only play who you play. I think Michigan just has a better resume. I think they look a little bit better. Michigan beat Minnesota. Michigan beat Albany. They're kind of riding high right now themselves too. So if they can keep that momentum going, they got to go on the road for it. We'll see if they can pull it out. But I think Michigan does pull out the victory. I don't want to call it an upset because I don't think it's an upset, but I think Michigan's the better team there.
If Washington gets some pressure, back foot Henry will blow it, says Triple McGee.
I love how people get the back foot comment about him. When you look at his offensive line, it's terrible. So that's why he throw off his back foot, and he still makes plays, and he still leads the league in passing yards, and he still leads the league in touchdowns. Like, come on, man. Y'all making yourself look silly with that narrative. So Malik is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, regardless of league, and it shows.
Got any more water you want to carry for him, man?
I'm just being honest.
Krish has all the weight.
Tape don't lie.
All the weight.
Tape don't lie. People do though.
Michigan offensive line has vastly improved. Tape don't lie at all.
Helly out there, Helly, was one of Helly High or whatever, from Southwest Kansas, who they should have never brought into professional football anyway. But it's their fault.
Should have played fullback. But that's a story for another day. Watch the tape. It ain't just because of the O-line that he is back foot crazy. Man, this is going to turn into a whole debate now. He does when he doesn't get pressured. All right. Anyway, I've actually got Nashville and Washington. I anticipate Washington's going to win this game. Granted, they're at home. That's part of the reason why I am picking them. I also think that Washington is a better team, especially after the recent moves that they have made than a lot of people are giving them credit for. I do think that, Krish pointed out the defense was already playing really well. And then you just added guys like Jamel Wynn and Giovanni Williams. And then you also improved your offensive line by getting Don Moore. That, to me, none of those moves are small. So if kicking game can be better on top of that, I think Washington's going to be a vastly improved team down the stretch. I know there's only a couple weeks left before the playoffs, so every win counts. And I think that the fact that they're going all in now to kind of add to that defense they've already got, I think that at the end of the day, the end of the season, we're going to find Washington in the playoffs, and I think they might even make some noise in the playoffs. Whether or not I'm not necessarily saying they're going to make it to the championship game or anything like that, but it wouldn't shock me to see if they snuck a win out in the playoffs once they make it. So any other thoughts on
Minnesota though? You realize how they've been awfully quiet lately in Minnesota after that bad loss to Michigan on Monday Night Football. Tony O'Neill with the back door with the defense winning the job, and obviously there's some problems in Minnesota, and it's bad, man. I mean, look, they pay guys so much money in Minnesota, and the fact that they're 5-4 is heavily disappointing. So I really hope they can figure it out, because Jacob Lambert's not going to have any money by the end of the season if he keeps spending the way he does.
I'm not necessarily concerned about him being out of money, that's for sure, but definitely some interesting things going on in Minnesota, and the next off season is going to be very interesting.
They're making kind of changes. They're going to fire the whole front office and the coaching staff, 100%. I'm calling it right now.
We shall see. Triple McGee says under pressure, Malik Henry, makes terrible decisions.
I'm not even going to respond. I'm going to make a montage, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to play next episode about why he makes the throws he does. Because when you're under pressure, you're under pressure.
To be fair, Cody says, don't we all make bad decisions?
I just think when you have arm talent, you know, there are different ways to, you know, mechanics wise that you can, you know, work it. So
Fair point. Any other thoughts on the AF1 before we move on?
no, I just think Kentucky needs to make a change at quarterback, and I think that you know, these last couple of weeks are going to be really interesting, and yeah, I'm excited to see. You know, I mean, we kind of know all the playoff teams at this point, but you know, seeding wise, it's going to be really important.
Agreed. There's still a little bit left to figure out, but it's not a ton, that's for sure. But on that note, we're going to hit one last commercial break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the IFL. There's 2 big coaching moves, which we'll discuss. And then there's been some a little bit of a shakeup in the standings, so we'll talk about that as well. But stick with us. We're not quite done yet.
The mountains you climb, maybe stairs. The records you set, maybe personal. The fans you inspire, maybe family. No lights, no camera, just action. You don't have to be a pro. You just need HoneyStinger.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me. It's so easy. Get out your own way. It's just so easy.
How many times a week? Like, three, four times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
That's right. Go tell 2 of your friends and 4 of your enemies, to steal a saying from my good buddy Cool McCain. Let everybody know about this show, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit the like button. We only have 2 according to StreamYard. There's no way that's accurate, right? Because everybody watching, all 27 people currently, have hit the like button already, I'm sure. But with that being said, we're going to transition over to the IFL. As I'm sure everybody has heard, there were 2 big moves this week in terms of coaching moves. Ron James is out in Naz. They have promoted Larry Hendricks to the interim coach. And then Higgins is the current offensive coordinator for the remainder of the season. So, Cody, let's go to you first. First of all, I imagine you're not surprised to see the move.
Not really, no. I'm surprised in the sense, like, it should it have happened sooner? I'm not sure. But after losing to another 1-win team in New Mexico, and honestly, I've been saying it in all my previews, recaps, and things like that, Northern Arizona has had multiple opportunities to win games this season. They've had multiple games slip out of their grasp. They've had the 1-point overtime loss to Vegas. At one point, they were leading against Arizona into the 4th quarter. They were actually leading most of that game against Arizona. They had a 2-point loss in the very first game that they had against San Diego. This past game, they had an opportunity to win. There have been multiple times for Northern Arizona to have some wins in the season, and every single time it's either been some mental mistake, time management, whatever the case could be. You can make all the excuses you want. They only have 1 win on the season. So I guess after losing to another 1-win team, it's like, hey, and a 1-win team without their coach, it was time.
Good point. I mean, not only did New Mexico win the game, but it was right after they had made a coaching change themselves. So a little bit of momentum for them, perhaps, or perhaps, it just happens to be luck of the draw for them, and just enough for Naz to make the move on their end. Krish, what are your thoughts on Ron James out in Naz?
Yeah, I think Coach James is a good football coach. I really do. I think he'll go and coach arena style. I think that's better for him. Obviously, he's a legend in that style of play. Obviously, I feel like this move came too late. Giving Coach Hendricks 40 games to try to turn it around. I mean, at this point, it's a wash. So the problem is Coach James, after the fight last week, I noticed he kind of lost the locker room. He couldn't get players off the field. It was just everything was moving too fast. I guess my question for you guys is, what does Coach Hendricks have to do for the remainder of the season to get the job full time?
I think if he even goes like 2-2, you have to consider him. I mean, honestly, if he even goes like 1-3 and he's competitive in all 4 games, I think you have to give him a strong consideration. It's obvious that there is a talent level gap there in Northern Arizona. And I do know that some of the mistakes that have been made this season have been coaching related as well. And I think some of those will get cleaned up now. But at the same time, let's not, beat around the bush. Ron James is a quality coach. He's very experienced, so it's not like Northern Arizona is going from a guy who was unqualified, to somebody who is, or anything of that sort. I mean, Hendricks is definitely qualified. He's got more IFL experience than James did, obviously. So that may bode well for the team, but I also don't necessarily expect to see like a dramatic turnaround and all of a sudden they go 4-0 or anything. Like that's just, I don't think that's feasible for them at this point in the season. Now,
for me, I would say 2-2. I would say if you beat Vegas, you automatically give him the job. That's my opinion. But they played each other last week of the season in Vegas, so
let me propose this question.
Yeah.
If somehow, some way they wouldn't have scored that touchdown and beaten Vegas in regulation, does Ron James still have a job?
Yes.
You think 100%.
So? 100%.
Even if everything stays the same and they still lose to New Mexico, you think Ron James still has a job?
Yes.
Okay.
He beat the defending champs, and they pushed them so hard. I mean, they were 29.5-point underdogs.
Mm-hmm.
It was a 1-point game, and they should have won that game. Honestly, Anthony Garrett made a. He's a baller, right? We talk about it all the time, but last play, that play call was not good, and he made the wrong decision. It was a QB pop pass, and plus he threw it over the guy's head, but he shouldn't have slid that. He should have slid with 13 seconds. And again,
that's how I feel about their game against New Mexico. They had opportunities there to win the game, especially late, and just like poor time management. I understand they had their own reasonings and why they wanted to do it and when they wanted to call their timeouts and stuff like that, but like I said, coming out of that 1-minute warning, I think it was like 3rd down or 4th down, or it was 3rd down, I think. If you just run the ball and waste 40 seconds off the clock, or New Mexico has to use their final timeout, I mean, I don't know. I think there's opportunities for for Northern Arizona to win, and the rest of the season they play Tucson twice, they play New Mexico again, and then they play Vegas. This is the best opportunity that you can get. If, like you guys are saying, if you can go 2-2, maybe even 3-1, if you can sweep Tucson and you can beat New Mexico, that is a good opportunity for Larry Hendricks and to vie for this position. I don't know if that means he's going to get it. If you want to believe the rumors that the ownership for Northern Arizona is stingy and frugal with their money, that might be the way that they're going already. I don't know if they're going to go make a splash higher, but at the same time, and again, that's just, I'm not going to speculate. Whatever they want to do with their money, whatever they want to do is what they want to do. But it remains to be seen. If Hendricks can prove his worth, I think you have to have him as a candidate. But there are coaching candidates out there that they could also take a look at. So we'll see.
I mean, everyone knows. I mean, you don't need to hide it, Cody. Everyone in the industry knows that the Palmers in Northern Arizona are cheap as they come. I mean, they're some of the cheapest ownership I've ever seen, ever in any league.
I mean, you can say what you want,
but a couple seasons ago, they had Rob Keefe, Les Moss, Rod Windsor on the same staff.
Yeah. Right, and then what happened?
So are they really, or are they just choosing to be cheap because they have to pay? They have to recover from that.
Well, what I said last week, man. If you there's 2 ways to own a team: you do it the right way or the wrong way. And the right way to me is investing up front. So.
That's a little black and white for me, but
yeah, I mean, like, and that's the thing, man. Like, I agreed to an extent with that, and not to like get it into a different league, but like how many baseball teams like the Mets or whoever spend this exorbitant amount of money and they never lift a championship? So I'm saying, yeah, money can win you championships, but it's not the determining factor all the time. So it's like, if they're doing it on a budget, if they are this cheap and frugal as everyone says, I don't know them. That's what I hear, but I'm not going to go out there and be like, these guys are cheap. I'm pretty much saying, hey, if they're able to still win games, if they're still able to put a product out there that fans come to, and that, they're able to still break even or lose a little less money or whatever, fine. But we'll see what happens when they hire their coach, whether it is going to be Hendricks, whether it's going to be someone else. It remains to be seen.
Well, this kind of creates an interesting discussion, right? In a league that technically has a salary cap, why is it that there's such a dramatic gap between teams like Iowa and Northern Arizona, and then teams like Vegas, Orlando, Green Bay, teams like that? Like, how is it that this stuff is developing if there realistically is being a salary cap that's being enforced? So I mean,
it's come down to coaching, man. That's what, and I think Cody will agree with this too. Like, it comes down to how connected the coaches are. In Orlando, like, people say, okay, you have a different head coach every year. Yeah, but like Jawad has been doing this for a while, so he knows the type of player. Okay.
100% it is. There's zero doubt in my mind.
But it takes time, right? So, it's coming in on the fly, and this is a whole discussion to be had. Exactly. But like, who you're connected with. Unfortunately, Coach Davis had the whole CFL unlocked, right? So, I mean, like,
you say that like Coach Higgins didn't just come from the CFL and he's at Northern Arizona. We interviewed him at the beginning of the season.
True.
The point that I'm trying to make here is it comes down to coaching. I agree with you when it comes to that, but again, it's resources and everything too. It also comes down to the way that you're going to scheme things up. For instance, we know that Fishers is going to be a run first team. They tried that last year with Jaya Wright and Espinoza and all these different quarterbacks until they finally got it right with Felix Harper. There is some plug and play. Look at the trials and tribulations that Arizona is going through right now. They thought that they could go get the former MVP, only to find out that they're going to start the former MVP. It's just like you got to plug and play your players. It's trial and error. I mean, look at what's going through some of these other teams and like just kind of cleaning house while some other teams stay status quo. For instance, you look at the team I root for in Quad City. They make the playoffs, but their resources are probably a lot lower than Arizona or Jacksonville or anything like that. And it comes down to coaching. It comes down to the talent around them. Now, this season is a wash, but for the most part, that's kind of how it is. Sometimes teams get hot and the schedule benefits them and things like that. The other time it comes down to coaching and ownership and, again, relationships, players, everything like that.
Like, people can say what they want about Dave Mogensen in Iowa last year, right? Or the 3 years he was there, right? Whatever the record is, what it was, right? But the way he found talent to players. And he's a really good recruiter. He should be in, if he wants to, he should still be in personnel. Because I think he was one of the best in the country. I mean, there's a reason why he found Antonio Wimbush. There's a reason why he found these guys, right? So for me, like, I think I look at what they have in Iowa now. I don't think Andre Coles has that same network in that, especially in that area. In the Midwest, I don't think he has that at all. That's why they don't turn over the roster as much, because he doesn't really know how to find talent in that area.
I mean, agree and disagree. And what I mean by that is I agree a little bit with the Dave Mogensen stuff, but we were literally talking like a month or two ago about the Iowa situation of, well, the culture's looking better and everything like that. And I think Iowa's still building something compared to what they had in the last couple of seasons, which I kind of agree. It's still a wait and see approach. We'll see what Andre Coles does this offseason, as if he didn't already have an offseason to go with. That's not me trying to, poo-poo on him or whatever. But the fact of the matter is it has not gone the way that he's wanted it to. And I think a lot of that comes out with how you start the season and how it kind of goes with it. I will agree to an extent where, recruiting is kind of tough, but when you look at the area that he's recruiting with and against, are you going to go play Iowa knowing the history that they've had in the last couple of seasons? Or are you going to try and go to Green Bay or Quad City or even all the way out to Fishers? He had an abundance of talent when he was the coach down in Frisco. He had an abundance of talent when he was the coordinator in Tulsa. So
Right.
I mean, I agree to an extent where it could be the location. But
exactly, like Frisco, Coach Back, he built that entire roster. And if you look at from when he was in year 3 to year 4, a lot of those players he brought back.
Right.
Andre Rose did. So.
And then again, they follow, like, either he followed them or they followed him to Tulsa because you still had TJ Edwards, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm just like, can you retain that? Fine, but some of the players that he has brought in, David Elder looks like a bright spot. If they're ever able to get that passing game going, I like what Donald McKinney's been able to do. I like what Curtis Ravenel's been able to do, but it's just not clicking. Is that a coaching issue? Is it the other coaches? Because all of the other coaches, whether it's Coach Serta, is it Snoop Blackman or home, or so, like a couple of coaches from Frisco and Tulsa have followed him up there. Is it all of that stuff? Or is it the players? I don't know. You could point the finger anywhere, but at the end of the day, you're just like, hey, we have to find a way to better this, whether it is, better resources and funding from the ownership down, or whether it is like, hey, we need better coaches and better recruiting and things like that. And you see the disparity from this. You see it in college football. I mean, you will have winners and losers. Not everyone can finish 8-8, and then you just base it off the tiebreakers.
You have a point. You have a point for sure. And I think there's a lot of factors. I think a lot of people like to boil it down to, certain individual reasons, but I think there's a lot of different factors. To this credit, like Krish said, Mike Davis is probably going to get a higher caliber of player than most coaches would, even in being in Vegas, because of his background with the CFL and elevating players.
Think about it this week. Right, Mike Davis went out and he made a ton of, and we'll talk about, he made a ton of changes. Right, he signed 4 players. 3 of them are power 4 guys. So like that's what I'm saying. Like to get guys like that on the fly, it takes a high level. Where I see like the guys, Iowa's getting. I mean, they're getting like D3 NAIA guys who are local on the fly.
Which is fair, and a lot of that is definitely the preparation up to that point. Obviously, we all know that Vegas has a really good group of coaches and a front office staff that also helps with the scouting. Obviously, our guy Evan Wilsmore is still there. So I think they do a lot of footwork and groundwork up front that pays off in the long run. And I'd be willing to bet that Coach Davis would 100% echo that given the opportunity, because that's the games are often won and lost in the won and lost in the off season, regardless of if it's a player that you sign or you don't sign in the off season. They can't come back to be the crucial piece of the puzzle down the stretch when you're trying to make a playoff game or something like that. So such as a guy like Antonio Wimbush returning, when you happen to put Josh Tomas on IR the same week. But we'll get to that in a minute as well. But let's talk about the other coaching change this week, or not really coaching change, but coaching hire, I guess, as Athens has announced Rob Keefe will be the initial head coach for the Athens football franchise. So I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that as we move into more and more information coming out from Athens. Cody, you had some thoughts on that, so I'll let you go first on this one.
It was the worst kept secret, man. I mean, as soon as he left Orlando and Athens was announced, it's like, there it is, match made in heaven. Like it was literally as simple as like, you want to be our coach? And I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Now I know it's more nuanced than that, but that's how I picture it. At least, just like, hey, you want to be our coach? And it's like, all right, cool. It's like, because we've asked this question before. Who out there is open? Like, name someone right now besides your usual suspects, your Curtis Chin or whoever. Who else was out there for the picking? He was the number one guy. I mean, as simple as that. And if you want to make a splash with the big ownership that you have with Jerome Bettis and David Pollock and stuff like that, you're going to go get your big name coach, which goes to show that Athens is that they're going to want to spend money. They're going to want to make a splash. They're going to want to be a team that is going to challenge teams like Green Bay or Jacksonville or even Orlando or Tulsa or whoever in that Eastern Conference when it comes time for 2027.
Krish, any thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, Rob Keith was our head coach here to start the season. And obviously that situation happened the way it happened, and it's justified, but I won't really go into that. But for me, I think he needs to change his coaching style. And what I mean by that, and people are going to say you're crazy, he's won so many games, and his resume speaks for itself. But he keeps jumping from job to job, right? He went from Albany, Northern Arizona, Iowa, Bay Area, all these places, right? He needs to find some consistency in Athens, and I think players, they value honesty. I don't even, worry about week one. I'm focused on the task at hand. We got Quad City this week, so I'll let all the media people speculate on that. But, I feel like, Rob Keith needs to, to change his style, and lead with honesty. And I think the more honest you can be, the more people will gravitate towards you. And I'm not saying he's a liar or anything, but when he was in Orlando with us, I noticed patterns, right? Like him sitting there saying he's the youngest football coach ever to win a championship. Well, that's not true, right? Or he's won the most championships in professional football history. That's not true. You know what I mean? So just being honest and leading with honesty will get players to gravitate towards you. And I hope he used this time off to reflect on his style and make the changes he needs to make. But he's a great coach. X's and O's wide. I not put him up against anyone, honestly.
Well, I would argue off the wall that he has better grounds to discuss consistency at the head coaching position than maybe anybody else, because he's seen how much it's held back the Pirates over the past couple seasons. And I mean that as no disrespect, but they've had no consistency and had no ability to create consistency because of that. So, and I think obviously Keep was supposed to be the guy that changed all that, and it lasted all of a couple months. So it's unfortunate for the Pirates how that all worked out, and I think they may actually have found a guy that may be better suited to be their head coach in over the long run.
Absolutely, yeah. Coach is an amazing ball coach. He knows offense. He's one of the best offensive play callers in the league. We scored the second most touchdowns in the league. And so, anytime you can be on the same page, or even the same just even screen as a guy like Coach Chin, who's the greatest offense coordinator in the country, regardless of league, it's a big deal. So,
what part are you arguing here, Adrian? I'm confused.
Can I push back a little bit? You said he needs to change up his offensive style.
No. Okay, so you got to chill a little bit, Lobo. You're going too hard now. But I'm not saying you're missing my point completely.
Well, I'm trying to figure out your point.
You need to chill too. But okay, let's
trying to ask a question.
Can I just explain this? Okay, because obviously Lobo took that information and turned it around. But so what I'm saying is that players will value honesty, and I'm not saying he's not honest. I'm saying that the more transparent you can be. He's a great guy, right? I know people that know him. He's a great guy, but I just think the more players following him from stop to stop. They have a lot of turnover in Bay Area. If you look at their roster from year 1, year 2, year 3, they lose a lot of players. So
because
maybe
they took them all from Northern Arizona, where he came from.
I understand that, but they went there for the money. You know what I mean? And then when that started to run out,
still won a championship.
No, I know, but he won a championship with Dixie Wooten. You know what I mean? After Dixie left, the program.
He was co-head coach.
I know, I understand that. You're missing my point completely. What I'm trying to say is that, players value, players will come back and subscribe to you.
Wasn't Bay Area still the number 1 seed when he was the head coach?
Yeah, and they got knocked out by 4 because they ran out of gas.
That's still the point. And he left Albany because the AFL closed down and he went to the IFL. Like you said, he was job hopping, and it's okay, well, he had to leave Albany because the league closed down. He left Bay Area because the team went dormant. He's had a job hop, not out of not necessity, but kind of out of necessity. Teams close down, leagues close down. So I don't necessarily blame him for that kind of stuff.
I don't blame him either. But what I'm just saying,
You just said he was job hopping.
No. So now I need to kind of backtrack a little bit.
Yeah, we are kind of. I'm trying to figure it out too, Chris.
I know you're trying to follow what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm trying to say that, like, just from an aspect of communication, I think he could be better at, kind of the way he promotes himself. Maybe that's a better way to use it.
Well, that's fine. There's a different way to promote yourself instead of saying that he's hopping from job to job. You're trying to make it sound like, well, I'm going to go get what did. Again, I'm not trying to, vouch for him. I don't know the guy personally, but like, if you had opportunities to be like, hey, do I want to go? And like what 1060 is saying, like, if we're saying that Northern Arizona's owners are cheap, do you want to go follow that money to Bay Area where they're paying the players and you can bring your players? Do you want to follow the money to Orlando where they're paying the players? I mean, what do you want to do? You add on top of that, he was the coach in Albany. He was the coach in Spokane. I mean, some of these, he wasn't the head coach. I mean, he was the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator in Iowa under Les Moss for that year or two. So, I mean, overall, he's following Les Moss as well. And Les Moss is following him. Like, they've been a tandem for quite a while now. So you can probably say the same thing for him. If you really want to get in the nitty gritty with Les Moss going from Jacksonville to Iowa to Northern Arizona, like, he's job hopping too, man. You're not saying that he's not trustworthy. You're, saying one thing and meaning the other.
All right.
Get Rob Keefe on the show. We can hash this out.
I've tried. He will not answer emails. Actually, most of the IFL coaches terrible at answering emails, but that's a story for another day.
Except the one coach that coached in the CFL. Isn't that funny? Yeah, there's a reason for that, right? Communication is key now.
Yeah, that's fair. So I wanted to touch on this comment real quick. The Naz owners have been cheap since Keith left. I want to point that out because I don't think that anybody's going to sit here and argue that they didn't spend a lot of money the season they won the championship. Again, they had Rob Keefe, Les Moss, Rod Windsor on the same staff. We know none of those three guys, from what I know, none of those three guys come cheaply. They're very good coaches. They're really good at what they do. Obviously, as you're making it very clear here, they also come with players that would love to follow them wherever they go. And that's part of the fact that you hire. That's part of the reason you hire people like that. They come with that network. But I do want to say there is some truth to what Krish is saying there. He has job hopped a lot, right? So he was with Albany in 2021. He resigned from there, and I think he's had 5 different jobs since then. It's 2026. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have a reason for all the job hopping. I'm not saying that, obviously Bay Area folded. There's nothing he could do about that. The team went away. What was he supposed to do? Hang out and wait for it to come back? So I think when it comes to that's another factor as well. But I also happen to know that part of the reason players are following him is he has a tendency to find the teams that are willing to pay at times. So that is a factor too. Bay Area was paying guys. Did Naz pay guys since he's left? I don't know. Did they pay guys during the championship run? Not entirely sure. But they had guys like Caleb Barker, Israel Tucker, a lot of players that haven't really played in the IFL since. So that kind of tells me maybe they were paying some guys.
Exactly, Coach. I like this comment. Who sends emails? Yeah, who creates a separate LinkedIn account? But we don't need to go there, right?
For the record, who sends emails? Well, when you contact the media contact for the league and they say, hey, here's all the emails for all the coaches that you've requested, what am I supposed to do? Ask her for phone numbers instead? Like, this is how everybody communicates in the media side of the world. Like, just so we're all clear, I've sent thousands of emails over the past 6 years, primarily because of media requests than anything. So a lot of people communicate via email. Our relationship maybe don't work like that, but that's a little bit different. So the truth of the game is you have to go where the best opportunity arises, which is 100% accurate, without a doubt. Proud of the game, unfortunately, just like me. Got to find a reliable and strong franchise that can hold on the long run. All a matter of circumstances. Yeah.
You know what, Lobo? I think you would be a good fit for Athens. I'm sure that's already in motion. Lobo to Athens. So let's put that out there.
I have mentioned that would make some sense as well. But anyway, let's kind of get to the picks for this week. So we've talked quite a bit about a lot of different things. So.
Yeah, what about the moves though? Big moves in the IFL.
Well, it's not that you touched a nerve. It's just that like this is exactly how every league operates. That they give out emails, and when I got one person out of I think 27 different people I requested interviews with that responded via email, and it was Brent Stover. That kind of tells me everything I need to know. Like emails maybe not be the best way to contact coaches, but if that's the only way I've been provided, it's kind of hard to go the correct avenues to get these interviews is all I'm saying. So legit heard that yesterday in terms of the him to Athens. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I mentioned it to him actually. So.
But anyway, a couple big IFL moves this week.
True. Antonio Wimbush, I glossed over it real quick, has returned to Vegas. Obviously, Josh Tomas has been placed on the injured reserve list, which big reason why.
Think about how big of a move that is for Vegas. Mike Davis, he comes from a special teams view. Frank Beamer is considered one of the greatest special teams coaches of all time in college football. So, I'm slowly becoming an expert on the CFL, and I'm starting to learn guys feed their families through special teams. So getting a guy who is special team player of the year from last year to come to Vegas to elevate your kickoff return game. Vegas is ranked second in kickoff return yards. They average 17.1 in the league. So, obviously this is a big move for them. Antonio Wimbush is one of the greatest running backs in this league I've ever seen, honestly. So I'm just glad he's back in the league, to be honest. I think it's good for the league. And I'm also, this is going to sound so bad, but, now Tomas is, going to sit for the rest of the year. That means my boy Puka can become the leading rusher in the league. So with touchdowns, he's only 2 away from passing Tomas. So I'm so excited for Puka.
Yeah, that did sound a little bit bad there, Krish. I'm not going to lie.
I didn't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying, but Tomas will be back for the playoffs. They'll be fine. And they also cut Ian McBurrow, linebacker. He leads the league, or he in all categories for linebackers. One of the best linebackers in the league. Mike Davis decided to move on and go with a young cat out of SMU. So, hopefully that works out for him. But last time he made a gamble at linebacker, he moved on from Mikel Calhoun and brought in Chizu Manaka, and they won the championship. So I think Coach D has a good eye for linebackers. Because apparently he played linebacker with the 8 other positions he played. So, he knows it. He played linebacker, quarterback, receiver. So, he's seen it all.
I'm very confused at the message you're trying to portray there, Krish.
What I'm trying to portray is that he was a versatile player, when he played the game. So he's seen the field from different.
When Krish said that he was on one, he didn't specify which one he was on, but he is on one.
That's fair. I was just trying to be clear if that was like a derogatory mark, like you're saying it's not accurate, or if you're
no, it is accurate. I'm serious.
Okay. Yeah. That makes more sense. I just wasn't sure like how you were trying to approach that. So
No.
But so anyway, was there any other big moves that you wanted to discuss? Obviously, you talked about Ian McBurrows, Antonio Wimbush. Anybody else, Cody?
I mean, did we talk James Cahoon?
You know what? I don't think we really have discussed that this week. So it sounds like Cahoon's left. Correct?
He's refused to report.
The whole baby rumor is a lie. So let's just get that out of the way. Like, yes, he is having a child, but they benched him. This came from apparently ownership or coaches or whatever. They decided they wanted to go with Edwards, and Edwards is local to Jacksonville. So they obviously are connected to him. So they wanted to move off Cahoon. Cahoon didn't want to be a backup, so he wanted to go to another team, and they placed him or refused to report. So that's the reality of the situation.
Interesting. So I wonder if maybe there's some sort of trade down the stretch or something if Jacksonville starts winning some games with a new quarterback. Maybe not, though. Who knows? Any other thoughts on the transactions or anything before we move on to picks?
No, man. I hope Ian McCurry finds a home because I think he's a really talented player, and I think every team in the league should be trying to sign a player like that. Like
Northern Arizona, perhaps?
No. But hey, what about Clinton Duck? Clinton Duck is a veteran DB on the market too. I could see someone picking him up for a playoff run. They also cut Jesse Johnson, who was he actually signed with Vegas, got signed to the UFL, and then came back. So
some strange guy is checking in here. I'm just happy there's 2 IFL games on tomorrow at 4. QC is going to win that in a blowout. So at least there's
on our program. The God love it. I was talking to one of my guys today. I'm like, man, people really love when we lose. It's awesome to see it. So we're just gonna keep doing what we do and keep building.
It's ironic because I heard similar things about some of your comments recently. So here we go. Here are the betting odds and picks for this week. I'm gonna let Cody go first. He's been awfully quiet today.
I mean, you got to be quiet and revel in the championship atmosphere from last week to this week.
I could rewatch that the video of that game countless times, and it would never be too much.
I mean, I've already gotten like messages from my buddies out there in Western Kansas, Clay and Megan, if they're watching the show. Shout out to you guys. I've already gotten questions from them from last week to this week of like, so when does the season start next, and what goes on with the off season, and how do the signings go, and what are you looking for, and this and that. I was like, I'm glad you guys are interested. I've converted you, so I'm proud.
No, that is awesome.
But awesome. to the indoor football league side of things, let's start it out with a very early game of the 5 p.m. Eastern time, Green Bay and Fishers. I am surprised this spread is low as it is because Green Bay is a fortress at home. They are 7-0. This is their final home game of the season before they hit the road for the final couple of games. Fishers has looked very wishy-washy. They're able to get that victory against Arizona. They've looked decent against Iowa. I mean, anyone looks decent against Iowa. Give me the Blizzard money line. I don't know if they're going to win by a point. I don't know if they're going to win by 3 or 4. I don't know. But Green Bay has been so good at home. I have doubted them all the time. So congrats, Fishers, on your win. No, I'm just kidding. I've got Green Bay money line here. I don't care about the points or anything. That money line minus 148 is exactly where I want it to be. It's under 200. It's a decent payout. Go from there. Tulsa versus Iowa. Give me Tulsa in the spread. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head how many games Iowa has scored under 30 or under 20 or anything like that. I think they've got the lowest point total. They've scored 7 this season. I don't trust them. They are a team in flux. I don't know what's going on. Tulsa's probably going to look to run the ball a little bit. They did sign Jawan Johnson, who they had last season. So maybe they're going to take their foot off the gas a little bit, but still, anytime you're like, hey, Iowa might be able to cover the spread here, they end up getting blown out. So minus 20.5, that's a little magical number. If you can win by 3 touchdowns, you get that hook, you go from there. So minus 20.5 for Tulsa. Vegas versus San Antonio. I think the blueprint is out from what happened with Tulsa and San Antonio last week. If you're just going to put pressure on Zach Calzada, then you have the opportunity to really kind of throw him off of his game. This will be his 3rd game that he starts or plays in. Vegas, yes, they've got some turnover on that defensive side of the ball, so there's going to be a learning curve there too. But at the same time, I think there's enough there for minus 16.5. Give me that spread against San Antonio. They're fighting for their playoff lives, but Vegas is fighting for a playoff spot because if they win this game, they clinch their playoff spot, and then it's pretty much it's all for naught where you have the final 4 teams in the West sewn up at that point. Arizona versus New Mexico, minus 21.5 for Arizona. New Mexico is kind of the same thing. They got their victory against Northern Arizona. It didn't look impressive, but a win is a win. You've got your second win of the season. You're going to play an Arizona team that is just still absolutely pissed off from the losses that they've gone from Tucson to Fishers to anything and everything. They just, something is off with Arizona. Perfect time for a get-right game for the Rattlers. So give me minus 21.5. We're doing all. Has Vegas already? They have already clinched, haven't they? Yes, they have. That's right. I'm stupid. Thank you, Coach Davis. Either way, they can clinch. They can get closer to a home playoff game if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, going back to that one. Give me Arizona. Yes, I know you're in the race for the 1 seed. Don't make me root for San Diego, damn it. But yeah, minus 21.5 for Arizona. It's a get-right game for them. I think they're able to take care of business. Tucson versus Northern Arizona. With the flux that Northern Arizona has, I don't know why the spread is what it is. I haven't seen any transactions that say otherwise. So give me Tucson in that money line. I know the odds are better when it comes to the spread, so you might be able to take the spread when it comes to that, but I'll just take Tucson in the money line. I think they'll pull out the victory. Orlando and Quad City. Give me Orlando in the money line. I know Quad City is very, very good at home. I do not know how good or how bad DeQuan Neal is with his injury and everything that he's dealt with. In the last couple of weeks, they did have their bye week, but having to plug Judd Roberts in there, Jared Ware got hurt against Iowa and all that stuff. So it remains to be seen how healthy they are. So I'm going to err on the side of caution with that. Give me Orlando. Paxton De Laurent looks really good. That wide receiving core looks good. Puka Williams is getting it going. I do not trust Quad City right now. So give me Orlando. And then finally, I guess upset, quote unquote. Give me San Diego because they've got the plus money odds. Give me San Diego plus 114 on the money line against Jacksonville going into the Shark Tank. I know the Jacksonville Sharks, they've got 9 wins. I don't know what's going on with Sammy Edwards and that whole situation, but if he is going to be the starter going forward, I was not necessarily impressed with his start. But at the same time, I like what San Diego's been able to accomplish. My gut is telling me to take San Diego. We'll see. But I know Jacksonville's really good at home. I think San Diego can pull out that victory.
Fair point. Random shout out to San Diego, by the way. Always a Bay Area fan, but I love what they're doing for attention and media down there right now. Method Man performance. I am apparently a terrible producer because I didn't even see that they had Method Man there until you said something. So I apologize on that fact. I should have made sure that was part of our topics last week because it happened on June 19th. So that is 100% on me. That is awesome. Good for them. That is a hell of a performance to have, especially in California. I think that's, great move. And honestly, these acts and these artists that these teams are getting that's impressive lately. So, Krish, what do you got for picks this week?
Yeah, Green Bay has been a wagon at home. I mean, I believe they're undefeated at home. They play really good football in front of their home fans. It's going to be Green Bay. I hope Green Bay wins. As a bias fan, I mean, we need Green Bay to win. They did 7-7. Iowa's a mess. It's going to be Tulsa minus 20.5. I think the spread is kind of too low, to be honest. San Antonio, Vegas. I like the over in this game. If I'm Jonathan Bain, my message is I'm going to be very aggressive this game. I'm going to try to test the new young DBs that Vegas has. They have 3 of them. So really try to go deep on Vegas and see what we can do, make something shake. I think Calzada, hopefully he'll look better than he did last week. They do have an advantage with a new linebacker in Vegas. He'll still be getting his feet under him. So give me an over 83.5. I do think Vegas will cover the spread, but I like the over better. New Mexico. San Antonio also has some good players too. So, obviously Rivers, my boy Terry Beckner, leads the league in top 5 in sacks. Marcius Floyd, he's back off IR. He's going to get active tonight. So I'm hoping San Antonio can be competitive, really. New Mexico, Arizona minus 21.5. I don't need to say much more. Tucson will win minus 3.5. I like Tucson. I think Tucson is on the hottest team in the league right now, and I think they'll win. Us versus Quad City. I like us, man. I think that win last week was a turning point for us, and we get to 8-5. We're a whole new football team. We're the team no one wants to face in the playoffs. with the amount of talent we have on both sides of the football. We made a change at linebacker. Kobe Taylor, who we previously signed, he went back to some BC in the CFL. So we put Leon O'Neal at linebacker. And, man, I remember someone telling me Leon O'Neal at linebacker would be a cheat code. Man, Leon O'Neal at linebacker different. He's a cheat code. So we finally got our special team figured out with our great kicker, Josh. Talked to him last night. He locked in, ready to go. So, we'll be good. Pirates -1.5. Most definitely. San Diego, Jacksonville. I like San Diego to win this game. I think Jacksonville's style of offense is way too predictable with Sammy Edwards. It's kind of like Tyler Huff last year, So give me San Diego. San Diego defense is like that too. So San Diego, for sure. Money line.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder who said that, right?
I think I have a hunch at this point.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, Leon O'Neal's a great player. He's one of those players that I think you could probably line him up anywhere in the back five of the defense and have him play pretty well. So as far as that goes, I think he's a really, really talented player, and the Pirates are lucky to have him for sure. I don't honestly remember who I bet on this week, so let me pull up my bets. But I believe I bet on Green Bay, Tulsa, Vegas, Arizona, Tucson, Quad City, and Jacksonville this week. And I just bet on the money lines this week. I didn't do anything crazy with any of the over-unders or anything like that. I saved my parlay bets for the CFL, so got a couple parlays for the CFL going on right now, and we'll see how that goes tonight when they play as well. Any final thoughts for the show before we wrap this bad boy up?
No, I know we said last week we were gonna, briefly talk about some players we thought could move up, to a high level. CFL, any guys that come up to your mind in the IFL?
In the IFL, I'll be honest, I didn't have any chance to research this topic, so it might be better if we wait a couple weeks on that. Cody, do you have anybody?
I was moving up to like the UFL or CFL or stuff like that.
Yeah, guys who you think could make it.
Oh, geez. I mean, there's a guy in Tulsa named TJ Davis that probably deserves another shot at the CFL. I mean, you can make the case for any of the guys that were able to drop down, like Antonio Wimbush is back. Okay, well, I think he deserves to be in the CFL. He had the tryout. I mean, so it's kind of weird. I think this should be, and I'm not trying to like use this as a cop out or anything like that, but it's like I feel like this should kind of be something when we get closer to the playoffs and teams have their seasons finished, and you're kind of in the thick of it when the CFL is, in the middle of their season. So I don't know. I know that sounds like a cop out, but to me, I'm just like, okay, well, we're still in the middle of the IFL season right now, and injuries and stuff will happen with CFL teams, and you'll start seeing some call-ups and things like that go down.
I think we have about 3 or 4 players on our football team that can make the move right now, just from what I see. In the Western Conference, I feel, for me, I look at a guy like, Arlen Bruce in Arizona, just what he's been able to do. Vegas, obviously, Delora, I think Fouché should get another opportunity. One guy from Vegas that needs to be up is Terry Roberts. Terry Roberts should not be playing in the Indoor Football League. That dude can shut down the entire side of the field by himself. He's insane. So get Coach D, get him up CFL, man. Like, he's crazy. But yeah, man, I think there's a lot of good players in the West that can make that move, especially on Vegas. They'll probably move up maybe 10 guys again this year, honestly. 3 to 4. I do believe 3 to 4. And I think if you really look at our football team, we do have 3 to 4 players that can make that move.
Well, again, that raises the question, like, is it going to be 3 to 4 guys that were already like in the UFL or CFL from like the off season to now? Like, you just look at Orlando's roster. Leon O'Neal was already in the CFL, UFL. Dexter Lawson, the same thing. Jay Davis, the same thing. Yeah. So it's like, I get where you're coming from, man. But
Jay Davis, like, he had a CFL opportunity, but he chose family instead. That's
right. But what I'm saying is, like, you could sit there and say 3 or 4 guys, but those are guys that have already had those opportunities. I guess I want to rephrase the question. Do you feel like there's opportunities for guys that have not had those CFL or UFL opportunities? Because it's easy to say a TJ Davis. It's easy to say a Leon O'Neal because they've already proven their worth. Like you bring up Jaden Delora. It's like, okay, well, he hasn't had that opportunity. For me personally, I'd rephrase that question. Be like, are there any guys that we have seen so far that have not had any CFL or UFL opportunities that could potentially make waves? I think would be the better way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I mean, I'm gonna just say, since if someone wants to question me my knowledge about my football team, O'Malley can move up. DeLaurent, 100%. Jerron Manning, he just got cut from the Falcons. He was 3rd in pass breakup in the SEC this past year. So 100% he deserves an opportunity to go CFL. I mean, I think that's a surefire, at least an opportunity. So, and then, I mean, one name that stands out to me would be, on our O-line, I would give Jeremiah Crawford an opportunity too. So, an opportunity. It doesn't mean they're going to make the team. It doesn't mean they're going to, ball out, be number one player in CFL, but an opportunity for sure. So
it might be tough for him now, and obviously this is probably an obvious choice, but Josh Tomas is somebody that I think that makes a lot of sense at the next level, who hasn't gotten an opportunity. Obviously his positional versatility makes him very valuable depending on where he goes. I think he would be a really good fit as a running back in the CFL. He's electric. He can split out as a wide receiver. He can do a lot of things that the CFL needs out of a running back. So it would make a lot of sense for me for him to get an opportunity. Obviously you could sit there and probably look at anybody on Vegas's roster and they're there for a reason. So that's probably why. But
really, 4.6? That's not the number I saw. I saw 4.4, 4.46, 4.47 actually, but that's the number I saw. But honestly, if we did run that, then yeah, but you can improve speed over time too. I feel like you would know that more than anyone, so. And he's young, he's only 22. So.
DeLaurent's another guy. I know Cody shouted him out. DeLaurent, I think, is a guy who has all the prerequisites to be at the next level. He also has that size that everybody looks for at the next level, 6'5" or something like that. So he's another guy that I could see getting a call up.
Tell me that Puka can't move up because his background history. Why is Sean Oakham? Why was he in the CFL then? You know what I mean? Like I think
Sean Oakman's background that got him initially out of the NFL ended up being proven incorrect.
Right. So, but Puka, I feel like Puka deserves an opportunity. I really do.
Hasn't Puka been in trouble multiple times though?
Well, I mean, once was for a DUI, but
okay, that's fair. I mean, I don't necessarily.
Everyone does that. So, not everyone, but you know what I mean.
I was gonna say not everyone.
You get my point. At least he deserves a look.
No, that's fair. I mean, he's an electric player, but he's also up there. Isn't he like 28?
25? He just turned 25 2 days ago. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, no. Yeah. He's a young guy, man.
He's been around a while. Maybe that's why I'm thinking that.
I know he started young. He left college last year. You got receipts.
Did he actually perform the 40 then? Or was it? I don't know. Either way. No.
When I looked on ChatGPT, it told me that he ran a 4.46.
I mean,
I believe Coach. I believe you, Coach.
I want to put this out here. If he ran a 4.6, even then, maybe it makes sense for him to get a call up in the CFL. Who knows? Can't have a DUWI in Canada. Good to know.
Not with that attitude. That's all they do up there when it gets cold.
They use horses though, so
they use snowmobiles.
There you go. That's a loophole. It's not low road legal, therefore it's not a DWI. Any other thoughts? We can definitely revisit this conversation about players moving up as we go. Obviously guys are going to be performing and stuff like that.
I do appreciate Coach Davis having that on tap though. And that's pretty impressive.
I'm sure he couldn't Google that in a couple seconds. Meese? They might ride Meese. You're not wrong. So yeah, anything else from either of you guys before we get out of here today?
No, man, big opportunity here. Just focused on task at hand, man. Quad City, excited for it. And I feel like, we can put belt this week. So just continue to build and continue to build on our culture. The standard is the standard in Orlando. So that's what it is. But, obviously Southwest Kansas with a big championship win. I know you're happy. It must feel great to be a champion. And yeah, man.
Yeah. Feels
Come
great.
on, Coach D, man. I need a lob now. Come on, give me an assist.
No assist. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you all for tuning in. It was really, really great to have you all here this morning. Great show. Once again, shout out to everybody who let our guys attend games this week, whether it was Nashville, Southwest Kansas, Wheeling, or also Carolina. We really appreciate that. We wouldn't be able to cover the game like we do if it weren't for all these franchises allowing us in their buildings when we request to be there. We operate a little bit differently here at Shady Sports. We try to cover our individual regions as much as possible. That way it's easier for people to get to games and stuff like that. So, when we are able to get to games, because we all have jobs, school, kids, wives, all that fun stuff, it's really awesome that all these teams are providing us with these passes or making it as feasible as possible for us to make it to these games. So I just really wanted to shout out everybody who has invited us to games that we haven't made it to yet, has had us out to a game already, has, offered to have us out to a game, any of it. It all is super cool that you guys all consider us for those opportunities and allow us to have those opportunities. We all got into this because of a passion, and it's because of organizations that allow us to continue to pursue that passion that we're still here. So thank you all who have let us attend games in your arenas, and thank you to all of the others who have invited us that we have not attended yet. So just wanted to throw that out there because there's a lot of great organizations, a lot of great ownership groups that have offered these opportunities to us that we have not been able to make as well. So thank you to everybody, and thank you to all of our viewers as well. So we'll catch you guys next week. Thank you for everything, and we'll be here every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern time, even on 4th of July next week. So even though it's a holiday, we'll be doing an episode. We have some pretty cool guests lined up, so I think you guys will enjoy it quite a bit. I will actually be on the road again, but I'm going to be tuning in on this episode for sure. So looking forward to it. Catch you guys next week.
Drive responsibly.
What's that?
Drive responsibly.
Drive responsibly. Yep. No DWIs in this chat. Okay. So make sure you guys have a DD. And just to throw it out there, if you're in Colorado and you need a DD and you have my number, call me. I'll be there. I'm a firm believer that, it's very important that people shouldn't be drinking and driving. I've had some friends that have, done some damage to themselves and others.
So anywhere in Colorado, like anywhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I got to drive to, damn near the Wyoming border to go pick somebody up, that's what I'll do, because at the end of the day, I think it's worth more for me to go do that than it is for them to hurt themselves or somebody else in a potential accident. So, there's, like I said, been some situations that have unfolded in my life that have made me that way. So, if you need to, call me. With that being said, you all have a great day. Enjoy the football this weekend. There's a lot of great games, and we'll catch you guys.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.